two other commissioners on that.
Okay, so it should be fine now, right, with the live and the recording?
Is it from the public speaker?
All right.
Okay. Talk and then
It's publicly, it's
You got it, Jason.
chair, standing up right there. We better go make a decision.
Yeah, we just sent the people.
Second.
Guiding us.
Guiding us.
is that the,
Okay.
Okay, what's the Wi-Fi?
It's like
It's public Arlington.
Arlington wireless is case.
Okay.
That's Casey.
Yeah.
All right, let's begin.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 26th, 2026 Transportation Commission meeting. I am Amy Dunovicoya, and I am the Transportation Commission Staff Liaison. And before we get started with the agenda and some introductions, I'd like to first ask if there's anyone who has anything they'd like to speak on that's not on the agenda.
me, right? Just me?
Just you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so great. So
Yep.
I'm Sue Campbell. I've been on the, what we've called the Virginia Hospital Center Working Group for 3 years, right? 3 years they've been talking about this. And I wrote this little 2-minute thing, and I told the county board like a week ago. And so I'm going to read this because this is kind of shows you a little bit of our frustration. So I appreciate all the work you do, especially because it's all volunteer. But during this whole process, we've tried really hard to get as much as we could, given the permitting process, which they constantly were saying, tell you anything, because it's, you know, it's all up in the air. But in the past several months, we just said, okay, we're going to try to figure out what they say about pedestrian safety, because the multimodal plan that's associated with this project does not address pedestrian safety. So this one guy in our group has been calling staff. No one will even call him back or email him. So, well, that was just like one little piece. And I feel like since we've had no luck with that, safety, you know, pedestrian safety has been like the key issue we've had with this project. We have 3 schools, hundreds of middle school students walking down Carlin Springs every day. The sidewalk, I'm sure you all know, is insane, right? And there's 2 houses that are like holding out for $50,000 more or so. I don't even know what, that corner. So anyway, it seems like the county is taking like a wait and see approach to see what's going to happen with the pedestrians. What will happen? Well, it's kind of like when we had a little park Zoom about the 2 turf lit fields that are across the street at Kenmore. There was no coordination with transportation and parks whatsoever. They were just going to wait and see what 2 lit turf fields might bring to this extremely densely populated road that 30,000 people take every single day, along with hundreds of 11-year-old children, right? So it just doesn't seem like it's like something that is planned. And I don't know, we probably maybe should have contacted you guys a long time ago. We were like pushing for that, but I don't even know that it would have helped. And we didn't want to like start bugging you about it when we didn't know when the permitting process would ever get started. Well, now it's started, right? We thought it would prevail between November and now because we thought they were going to accept it in November. And so we were looking for changes in the plan that was dropped in November, and there have been no changes. And there's still, and I have talking points I can make for you guys. There's still a second entrance with a walled retaining wall on either side of it that's right next to the medical building. That has a blind spot too. As you look up the hill, you don't see that entrance. There's no light at that entrance. It's a second entrance. I know it's a behavioral health center. It needs a second entrance. So I'm just like, we were hoping that they would configure it some other way so that that wouldn't be something that not only the children that are walking that strip road, but all the people that are going to go to that behavioral health center. I mean, they're not all going to get ferried in some limousine or whatever. They're taking the bus. They're walking. So that's been one of our primary concerns. We're also concerned about It's odd because there's this path they keep talking about for bikes. And I appreciate people want to ride bikes. There's a lot of bikers that go through our park, but there's this non-contiguous little section of bike path that they want to put into the little neighborhood onto a cul-de-sac, onto a quiet cul-de-sac with 17 children that live on that road for that specific reason. Now, I don't know how many parking spots they originally planned for this hospital, but I know because of the water table in Carlton Springs, we all have sump pumps. It's insane. Like they couldn't build down 4 flights of parking deck, right?
Time's up.
Oh, sorry. So those are our 2 concerns. I can leave this with you guys. And we would love to talk to you further. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. And for everyone who was listening, this is the new behavioral center on South Carolina Springs, not the Virginia Health Center in North Arlington.
Sorry.
So yeah, but I noticed some people were looking at the
Oh, sorry.
thing on their laptops.
I've been talking about it for so
Yeah.
long that I can't even.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for coming and thank you for this.
All right. Yeah. So the permitting process is going on now. So I would think it'd be on your agenda at some point.
I expect it to come down the road.
It's gonna follow a similar process.
I don't know what type of application it is to.
We're the lawyers here for
Yeah.
the traffic engineer. I'm happy to say if.
Sure.
No, yeah.
It's gonna go through the full SPRC process. It's gonna go in that room, and then following that online engagement to SPRCs, eventually you guys, we're like months away from,
Actually,
the state.
Yeah.
I don't know
Actually,
where they
the
went.
neighbors too is Arlington. You know.
So what will happen is a transportation commission member is represented on every single site plan review committee or SPRC. And when it gets into that process, we attend 2 or 3 meetings in person or hybrid, usually with a walking tour, where we're able to convene with planning commission members, which is who runs and oversees each of those meetings, as well as members of other advisory commissions like ours, including Parks and Rec and Housing. I don't know that housing will be involved here, however.
We have
they usually are.
Somebody from our neighborhood said forestry at parks right now.
Okay, so we use that opportunity to discuss with developers and other components to really bring up pedestrian issues. We sit on these SPRCs all the time where we talk through everything from how people walk, how people drive, how people bike, how people transport to and from, and how it affects the overall area. So I'm really sorry that you're not having any contact with staff, and we'll see what we can do, but please know that we will play a role in this process at some point.
Also, I think that given how early it is, that might be a reason. Not as much contact, because I think things really kick off during the SPRC process.
They really do, and a lot of answers kind of come in and out, and there are opportunities for more public comment during that process.
It's like once it starts though, it's so brief. I mean, it might not seem brief to you guys, but with us in our neighborhood, we have to really like bang on doors to get, people to come to a meeting. Like
Yeah.
my neighbor drove me, she's never been to the county board.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I appreciate it. Yeah, I can see, I hope that, for sure, that they do some things to really think about
Yeah.
pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I definitely encourage you to, I know it is a tight process. I know it is difficult to do community engagement, but during the SPRC, there is room for public comment. You're going to be able to speak directly to
Rita
developers.
reach out to me.
Okay.
If you point questions about the process, and if I don't have the answer, I can find it.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And with that, I don't think we have any other speakers. We just had 2 other people come in. If you're speaking on an item that's not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. Yeah, okay. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to our chair, Mr. Aiden Baratovich, and we have some announcements.
Yeah, thank you all for attending. We have 2 new commissioners, Brian Traeger, I believe is your last name.
Traeger, yeah.
Traeger,
Yep.
all right, get that right.
It's 1 syllable. That's usually the easiest way to get it. Yeah.
And Casey So if you want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Sure. Hi, yes, Brian Traer, newest appointed commission member. I'm very happy to be here. Very honored to be a part of this body. For some background, I work for the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, which is a mouthful and terrible branding, but it's written into statute, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. My organization is essentially the Maryland equivalent of the MPTC, which I'm sure many people here are familiar with. We fund WMATA on behalf of the state of Maryland, so most of my job entails doing work with the Metro, and I'm just really stoked to be doing a little bit more ground level transit related to work rather than like big picture stuff. So yeah, really excited to be here and look forward to like diving in.
I am Casey Vanderpool. I've lived in Arlington since 2008 and have been a transportation cyclist since like 2018. I get around town with my two young kids, 4 and 7, pretty much by bicycle, and if not by bicycle, by metro or bus. So I'm really passionate about using alternative forms of transportation to get around town. And I'm really excited to be here and lend for different perspectives. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to have both of you here, especially since we need new members. Currently, we are not at quorum. We're 1 member short in person. So if
We actually do have, we have 6 people in person, right?
yes,
11.
11 members,
Majority.
so we need 7.
Oh, wait, yeah, we need 2/3 majority.
Oh, we need 2/3 majority.
Yeah, my understanding is 2.
Or is it just simple majority?
I think it's simple majority.
Oh, if you can confirm that, then that would be
Fabulous.
great.
And I'll chime in. If someone in person is needed for quorum, I could be there in probably 15 minutes or so. I was just dealing with some things at home, but I can push that off.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, it might be necessary. So
Yep.
if you could make your way over.
All right, I'll get my shoes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Commissioner Theo, I could probably be there in about 15 minutes if you need to take care of, I just was running late from a different call, so whatever works better for you. If you have to, I can head over too.
We only need 1, so it's
Well, let's-
Yeah,
let's-
which I just don't want to, I know you said you were dealing with some stuff. I just was running late from a different meeting, so I can head over if that works better for you.
Commissioner Walker, if you're able to do that, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Well-
that's no problem. I'll be there in a few minutes.
hold on.
We changed the policy in July, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, let's confirm first that because we might have enough right now, so there might not be a need for either of you to change your plans. So let's confirm that first. Otherwise, if not, then you two can message each other and agree on who's coming.
I'm agnostic on whether you have a quorum or not, because it's an advisory commission. You
Yeah.
write the letter without a quorum or with one.
Exactly.
I recognize that you might have business you want to attend to with a quorum, so I'm not.
Well, it's always nicer when you can have a vote. I mean, the substance of the letter will reflect the discussion anyway, with or without the vote.
Anyone travels, I mean, but-
Yeah, but it's nice to have a number associated with.
Reading the entire. I think
Take that to you.
The last thing, 2/3 of 8, 11 would be a fraction of 7.
plans for calendar year, typically minutes. Participation. Yeah. You could go ahead and start with the presentation, or it's just the voting that is the issue. So if you want to do that, I can let you know once I find the.
Well, how about if we could have either commissioners Blocker or Theo start
Yeah,
making-
I'm on my way. I'll head over.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Just,
Thank you, Commissioner Walker.
I'm still listening, so you can proceed if you want to start.
Yeah.
I'll just,
yeah, if we can begin with the first agenda item, the EV charging.
Yeah, hi, this is Emily Nachbar. I'm staff of DES, and I'm here to present tonight on the EV charging zoning study. If you'd like me to get started, I can dive in, or if you have any sort of opening remarks, I'm happy to pause for that.
No, please get, happy to have you get started.
Okay, great. And then before I dive in, just want to introduce my colleague, Steve Burr. He's here in case there's any particularly difficult questions that come my way. He'll be supporting and answering those. And so let me pull up my screen, and I have my window open. So if it gets hard to hear me, the metro is just a few houses down. Let me know, but sort of feel free to raise a hand if that becomes an issue. Great, and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. So just a little bit more of an introduction of myself. I'm in DES within the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Management. Within that team, I'm on the AIR team, Arlington Initiative to Rethink Energy. And our team is really focused on how we sort of take action to reduce our impacts on climate change. And so sort of with that sort of motivating goal, we've been focused amongst sort of many things on our plate is figuring out how to reduce barriers to EV charging in Arlington. So today, I'll talk about sort of the policy drivers for this work and key data, some current limitations for EV charging, and our proposed sort of next intended outcomes and changes, as well as next steps. Want to just sort of mention up front in sort of correspondence with Anubandin what the ask of the Transportation Commission is for tonight. So I think first at the end of the presentation, interested to hear sort of comments or feedback that you have, and then you're welcome to write a letter to the board. Our board report is for the RTA is not ready yet, so I'm not ready to share that yet, but we can share it when it's available. And I can also sort of include any feedback I hear tonight in that board report as well.
So if effectively right now, this would be an information item. You know, was listed as an action item, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think that board report will be available within the next few weeks. We're aiming for the RTA to go to the May board meeting and then for board approval at the June meeting.
Okay.
So to just dive into why we're doing the study, the community energy plan is one of the elements of the comprehensive plan, which you can see sort of on the bottom left. This plan was written in 2019, and goal 4 of the plan is to move more people with fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So a big part of that is sort of mode shifting away from vehicles towards transit, biking, walking. But we also know that vehicles are part of the transit that's happening in Arlington. And so the way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from personal vehicles is to electrify those vehicles. And so policies within that goal are to promote and encourage EVs in the private and commercial sectors, especially through supporting charging stations throughout the county. Internally, we also developed the Carbon Neutral Transportation Master Plan, which I would say is more of like an action plan of how to actually achieve those goals and policies in the Community Energy Plan. And so again, the action is how to support that array of EV charging throughout the county. And one of the mandates there is to support clear processes for deploying EV chargers at residences and businesses. And so that's why we're doing it. And then, you know, the plan was written in 2019. Why now? We've been receiving an increasing volume of resident feedback around sort of EV charging being a challenge. I've highlighted 2 of the sort of buckets of feedback that we receive here. On the left, enforcement on county property. So we have 51 EV charging stations on county property that are available to the public, and these spots can be difficult to enforce. one, sort of the signage is somewhat limited in what we can say right now. So it just says either EV only or EV parking only. And it can be really difficult to determine just by looking at a vehicle if it's electric or not, especially because automakers make different trims of vehicles. So there might be, for example, like a Kia Niro can come in electric, or it can be a gas-powered vehicle. It's hard to tell just by looking at it, especially for enforcement staff. On the right side, this is an example of where the zoning setbacks are restrictive. And so basically structures, which today EV chargers count as a structure, are not allowed within setbacks. And so the setback is the greater of either 50 feet from the center line or 25 feet from the property line, which is that green line. And we can see in this sort of multifamily property in Arlington that the entire parking area is in that setback, and so there's nowhere that EV charging can be placed. And even in places where part of the parking lot is in the setback and part isn't, it can be difficult when spaces are deeded. There's like an additional variety of challenges for multifamily properties adding EV charging. And at the same time, we see EV adoption is growing really quickly, even sort of in spite of the federal tax credits, which ended at the end of September of 25. So from 2019 to 2024, EV sales in the US increased by almost 400%. And then if we look locally in Arlington specifically, basically over the last 2 years, there was a 90% increase in the number of electric vehicles registered in the county. And in these graphs, the blue portion of the bars is the fully electric vehicles, whereas the yellow portion is a plug-in hybrid, so a vehicle that can be fueled from electricity external to the vehicle and also has gas, as opposed to a more traditional hybrid where it just uses sort of the gas fuel to regenerate a little bit of power and turn that into electricity. We're just focused on vehicles basically that need to plug in externally from a charger. And so all of this adoption data is great, but we see a really uneven distribution of electric vehicles in Arlington. So on the left-hand side, simple pie chart of population by housing type. So 73% of residents in Arlington live in multifamily type residences. But if we look at EV registrations by housing type, we see that 81% of EVs are registered to owners who reside in single family type housing. And this kind of points to a known issue that it can be more challenging to add charging at multifamily housing for a variety of reasons. Just some quick background, since not everyone is sort of familiar with all the EV charger nuances. There's basically 3 main groups of charging speeds. On the left-hand side is what's called level 1. This is the slowest charging speed. This is basically plugging your car into the same outlet that you plug your phone or a laptop charger into. It's not the fastest. It adds around 5 miles per hour of charge, but since people actually spend the vast majority of their time, their car is just sitting, this actually can meet a lot of driving needs. On the other side of the chart, the fastest charging is called level 3 or DC fast charging. This is really only available in public charging scenarios. It has a really expensive upfront cost, but it's essential for sort of on-the-go charging. There's a variety of speeds within this category, but I would say typically you can add about 100 miles in 15 minutes. And then level 2 charging, which is the vast majority of public charging in Arlington, kind of balances the speed and the upfront cost. And so a typical vehicle can add about 30 miles of range per hour of charging. This is essentially plugged into like a dryer outlet, but it's often home wired, and it's a good solution for both home and public charging. And so with a little bit of background, why don't we dive into the zoning study? So we've been taking a really interdepartmental project approach. We're grouping mainly DES, Department of Environmental Services, with CPHG to kind of get all the expertise and experience needed to try to come up with zoning solutions that meet the full needs of the community. And so on the DES side, we have folks from transportation, engineering, and operations, as well as myself and others from the AIR team. And then on the CPHD side, we have folks from planning, zoning, and inspection services division, as well as some other teams that have provided input just sort of on an as needed basis. And so with this working group, we've identified kind of very clearly what the current interpretation is of the zoning ordinance and what the resulting barriers are. So the first is that it's good that EV parking does not reduce the total number of parking spaces required, but spaces labeled EV charging only are not interpreted to count as a parking space. And this can be a barrier because when you add charging, it has a high upfront cost. And so property owners kind of want to maximize the ability to have people charging. But if you're not able to sort of limit that spot to EV charging only, you can have cars blocking those spots frequently. The second point is that, kind of like I mentioned in the photo a few slides ago, EV chargers are considered structures and therefore are not allowed in required property setbacks, which can be challenging when parking is located in setbacks. And then we have sort of a number of existing parking requirements today. This leads to lots that are sort of quite constrained and don't necessarily have the space to add EV charging under the current zoning rules. And so here's a very high level review of the proposed conceptual changes, and then I'll dive into them more in subsequent slides. So on that first point, we're looking to make a change that spaces labeled EV charging only would count as a parking space and count toward parking minimums, even though they can be restricted to EV charging. We're looking to make another change that allows level 2 chargers and level 1 chargers, but those are really just outlets, right up to the property line. And then that sort of more industrial DC fast charging would be allowed in a portion of the setbacks up to 8 feet from the property line. And then we're looking to create some flexibility in their parking requirements to accommodate EVSE, so electric vehicle supply equipment, which is essentially the charger and other sort of infrastructure needed to make the charging happen. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water here. So diving into this first point, this change around allowing parking spaces that are considered EV charging only to count toward parking minimums would apply both to the county's property as well as to private property. For the county's property, which I'm involved with, I can just talk a little bit about what that impact would be. And the impact would be sort of somewhat similar for property owners. So across our charging stations, these are 5 of our 9 locations. Some have signage that say EV only or EV parking only. Some just have sort of green paint to try to indicate the spaces are reserved for EVs. If we're allowed to change the signage to EV parking only, these will be a lot easier to enforce. We'll be able to add sort of clear, consistent signage across the locations, and it allows the county to recoup more of the costs of the charging, of the upfront costs of the charging, as we can increase utilization of the chargers by saving those for people who are really charging. Along with this, and I would say this part is very specifically just for county property, we're looking to adopt a section from the Code of Virginia that says it's a traffic infraction to park a vehicle that is not an EV or an EV that is not in the process of charging in a space that's clearly marked as reserved for plug-in vehicles. So that signage could look like something on the right: no parking except while charging, or must be plugged in. Language like that. And while I guess this authority for us to enforce according to this code does already exist today, it's a best practice for the county to adopt this code into the county code so that it's clear that the county can keep the penalties, which the law says can only be up to $25. And also so it's clear that not just police officers, but also the sort of civilian enforcement staff can enforce this language. On private property owners will still have to sort of manage if drivers are not following the signage that they've posted. So this is only for county property. Moving on to the setbacks. So kind of like I said, this is the same picture I showed a minute ago. Setbacks matter because no structures are allowed within setbacks in this example, and in other examples, there's no place to put the EV chargers to serve the vehicles because they would all sort of be within that setback area. And so basically, our proposal is that the level 1 and level 2 chargers can be placed right up to the property line, and the more industrial DC fast chargers, level 3 charging, can be up to 8 feet from the property line. The zoning ordinance, the Arlington County zoning ordinance, the AXO, already has precedent for some structures being placed within setbacks when there's a benefit of having those structures there. So some examples are listed here, like flood walls, ramps, fences are all allowed within setbacks. They just sort of need to be explicitly called out in the zoning ordinance. And then moving on to the last topic around allowing flexibility in restricted parking areas. So just diving into a little bit more about how parking areas are restricted today, I would say there's 3 main categories that limit where EV charging can be placed. And so on the top left, this is an excerpt from Article 1437 of the zoning ordinance, which basically says for each use type of properties, how many parking spaces are required. On the bottom left is another excerpt from the zoning ordinance that mentions that describes the dimensional requirements of those parking spaces. So basically you need to have a certain number of parking spaces and they can't be smaller than this. And then on the right side is a very simplistic sort of representative diagram of a parking lot. Each white rectangle represents a parking space. The gray part is the drive aisle, and the black part would be a boundary that could be like the property line, a wall, a pedestrian walkway. And so we can see in this parking lot, there's already the maximum number of compact spaces, which the zoning ordinance allows for most properties. Up to 15% of spaces can be compact. We're bounded by like the existing sort of physical infrastructure. And so like where do you put EV charging in this sort of constrained lot, which is not uncommon in Arlington parking areas. And in addition, there's other like sort of non-zoning requirements for EV charging. So the Virginia Building Code was updated a few years ago, basically saying that if you have EV charging, at least 5% of the EV charging spaces must be van accessible. And the Inspection Services Division interpretation, which is consistent with how other states interpret this as well, is that EV chargers cannot serve ADA required accessible spaces. So these really would need to be additional accessible EV charging spaces. Luckily, this it doesn't apply retroactively to properties where the buildings are already built, but for any buildings we're creating like today and moving forward, this would apply whether they're adding EV charging up front or if they're adding more EV charging somewhere down the line, that more accessible spaces might be required. And so all of these things create limitations on the space to add EV charging. And so we're looking at 3 different ways based on concepts from other jurisdictions about how to provide flexibility for EV charging. So the first is to reduce the dimensions of required parking spaces. So an example from Palo Alto allows the parking stall width to be reduced by up to 18 inches to accommodate the EV charging. You could also reduce the length of the parking space to accommodate this charging infrastructure. And if you reduce the length of one parking space, you actually might also be able to serve an adjacent parking space without impacting the dimensions of that parking space. Another option is to count EV charging spaces as more than one space when tabulating sort of the minimum parking requirements. And so in Charlotte, North Carolina, they basically say stations where EV charging is installed count as 2 spaces. And so that effectively reduces the number of required spaces and allows you to sort of create some areas to place the EV charging equipment. And then in Fairfax County, just across the border here from Arlington, they have basically ways that either the director can approve reductions to minimum parking, or you don't even need to sort of update the parking tabulations just when you're adding EV charging stations, effectively allowing you to reduce the number of parking spaces to accommodate EV charging. So as far as next steps, we're finalizing how to make these updates operational in the zoning ordinance, like what is the exact text change to the zoning ordinance, mainly for that like last category, I think we're pretty set on the first two options of how the language will work. This is our second to last stop in terms of number of commissions that we're presenting to. We're also presenting to NIAP next month, and then looking for board approval. Like I said, right now our plan is going to the May board meeting with the RTA and then the June board meeting for approval. And after that approval, sort of focus on public education and also continue to advance other EV charging programs. We get asked a lot about curbside EV charging, both for public EV charging, like where multifamily properties just getting charging on site isn't working, and also for private properties where they don't have access to off-street parking or ability to get charging. So curbside charging, I think, is really exciting opportunity for Arlington. It is outside the scope of this zoning study. I think as the zoning study wraps up, we'll turn to focus on that. So that is the end of my presentation. Happy to sort of take any questions or comments that you have now, or wait to hear about that in a board letter later on.
Thank you very much for presenting. Because there is no motion or anything, we're treating this as an action item. So we will not be writing a board letter. But I think overall, I'm personally very supportive of this because it basically removes some ridiculous regulatory burdens that make no sense, and to allow for more of these spots. I think you're going to have much more debate when you come to curbside EV charging, because there's generally a lot of competition for curb space, and increasingly so in Arlington. But in terms of what your presentation covered tonight, which is mostly off-street parking, I think the getting rid of the setback requirements. I'm assuming for level 3, just because of the higher voltage, 8 feet is where you. Does anybody do it at the property line?
City of Alexandria does do it at the property line. And we actually got some feedbacks from the Planning Commission. We talked to the Zoning Ordinance Commission a week or two ago that maybe considering allowing it along like a rear and side property lines right up to the property line, and but keeping that 8-foot setback for just the front property line where there could be more potential damage or issues, especially considerations related to the high voltage. So that's also something that sort of we heard that feedback and are considering.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, overall very supportive, especially of counting EV parking spots as actual parking spots. I think ideally we wouldn't have these parking minimums, but since we do, it doesn't make sense not to count these. So that's all I'm gonna say for now. Commissioner Flores has her hand up.
You stole most of my comments. I would be concerned of fire and safety considerations for L3, knowing that Alexandria City does do it at the property line, lessens those considerations. But would, and I guess you will, but would encourage some fire safety communications before taking that to the board, just because I imagine they will ask those questions. And then incredibly pro counting EV charging spaces as more than one space. And not the place for conversation, but would love to remove the parking minimums while we're at it at some point. But in absence of the ability to do that here, I think counting EV charging as more than one space will both encourage the increase of EV spaces in large projects that we see through the site plan review committees, the SPRCs, as well as encourage more people to bring their vehicles out and charge them. Thank you.
Commissioner Traer.
Thank you. Instead of saying, captured a lot of what I was going to ask, I'll echo the desire to not have parking minimums, at least within a quarter mile of mass transit points of some kind. But in this sense, I think it makes a lot of sense. My questions were also related to the setbacks, and was also going to ask if there had been any discussion so far with fire EMS or like a fire marshal consultation on this. I imagine there are probably good reasons for having 8-foot setback, but I would also love to not have duplicative work from the county staff and be right back here in a couple of years when you say, we actually want to remove that setback and we have to go through this process all over again. Yeah, I concur with the finding a cohesive policy there, especially if there's precedent in neighboring jurisdictions. If it makes sense to kind of do this in one fell swoop. That's y'all capture everything else up next.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Thea, please go.
Yes, I'll just echo sentiments of others that this is a very good point in favor of eliminating parking minimums. And if there's any communication with the county board, I would love to see that sort of hinted at, or at least helping to, helping the county board members and the rest of, and the county manager to see that parking minimums do cause problems. And this is a key area in which they do cause problems, which might help them speed along the process of considering eliminating parking minimums. Regarding the property line issue, I definitely agree that eliminating those requirements for L1 and L2 are a good step. Regarding L3, I could see some issues with eliminating the minimums, the setback minimums on the side and back of properties, because I can imagine property neighbors would complain about having a high voltage, I believe what 480 high voltage equipment right up against their own property line. And also if there were issues that might make it less accessible to fire rescue crew or any responders that would be needing to put out any fires or shut off any equipment or something like that. I could actually see it being easier to eliminate those minimums in the front of the property. I think, as you said, the city of Alexandria has done that. And but so regardless of my concerns about the side and back setbacks of properties, I am very much in favor of just copying what the city of Alexandria has done and being in line with that jurisdiction. I don't see the need to do something different. If City of Alexandria is doing something like that, that is more liberal than our requirements, than our restrictions, then I would be in favor of just copying theirs. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and just for awareness sort of on this topic, City of Alexandria adopted this policy within the last year. So when I talked to staff there hasn't been like a ton of experience with the new policy yet, but they did move forward with that within the last year.
Yeah, so I'd be in favor of just copying their work. So why do something different, Ryan? Why reinvent the wheel?
Thank you.
Commissioner Hussain.
Yeah, I just want to associate myself. I don't have anything to add. But I do have one question. This is just honestly from my own curiosity. On slide 19, you talked about the Virginia Building Code 1107.2. Could you just explain that again? I mean, I guess it's not like completely relevant. Like it's not like a substantive question, but it's more for my own curiosity. Yeah, could you just explain what that is again? Because I'm reading it. I'm not versed in
It's a little confusing.
this language, so it's just
Yeah. So this is actually, this is the Virginia Construction Code, which is a part of the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code. And in 2024, they added this new provision that says, and I'll just read it, not less than 5% of vehicle spaces on the site served by electric vehicle charging systems, but not fewer than one for each type of electric vehicle charging system shall be accessible. And then it goes on to define that the dimensions of the accessible space, which is shown on the right, the 11-foot width and then the 5-foot access aisle, which is essentially sort of shown in blue here, just smaller than the width of 2 standard parking spaces as defined in our zoning ordinance. And so this basically says for new buildings, if you're adding EV charging, 5% of those spaces served by EV charging must meet these accessible requirements. And so there's, I guess, a concern for, maybe a building only adds a few EV charging spots today because, electric vehicles only represent about 5% of vehicles in Arlington County. But in 5-10 years from now, as EVs we expect represent a much higher percent of registered vehicles, they want to add more EV charging. And so that might result in additional required accessible spaces under this building code, which especially for like a garage parking, there might not be sort of room to add those additional accessible spaces. And so as we're considering this sort of flexibility that we're looking to add for adding EV charging, the flexibility should basically accommodate these accessible spaces that are required by the building code. The caveat is that older buildings, basically anything built before 2024, the building code that was in place at that time is what's applicable. This clause wasn't in the older building code, so this isn't relevant for existing properties. It's really just a consideration as we're building new locations in Arlington. And one other thing that's not on this slide, this only applies to some parking lots, not all. It actually doesn't apply to residential uses, including like apartments, condos, townhomes. And so this would be really a consideration for more commercial or mixed use properties.
Okay, awesome, thank you, that's helpful.
So
Commissioner Traer.
Just to clarify, I don't want to derail this, but the next point on there about concerning charters not being able to service ADA required accessible spaces. We're not saying that like there can't be any EV chargers at like handicap spaces. They're just saying that like it can't meet whatever ADA requirements you need to have above and beyond that if you want to have electric chargers. I just want to like make sure like this isn't a policy that like is saying that like people that require a handicap spot aren't able to also have electric vehicles. I'm just trying to clarify what that means.
Yeah, so for every lot, like ADA has a requirement, you must have this many ADA accessible spaces, which might be the van space or it might be other size accessible spaces. If it's the spaces required by ADA, it can't have EV charging because that potentially, I guess our interpretation is that might attract more people to the space and that would block like people who need to use the parking space for like the original purpose that the property was there for. If you build additional accessible spaces that aren't those ADA spaces, yeah, EV charging can serve those. They just have to be additional spaces.
Thank you for the clarification.
And Mr. Chair, we also had someone sign up to speak on this issue. I don't know if they're here.
Commissioner Wilder, you had your hand up.
I did.
Virtual.
Yes, a couple questions. First, I was really interested to see the pie graph showing that really most of the registrations are in single family homes rather than the multifamily, even though, the population is vice versa. And I was wondering, as part of this commission, we see a lot of the new development coming up. We always ask, what is the EV requirement? Is it what's the minimum? What they're gonna do day one, and then like the long term or expanded. Is there any recommendation that you may have for how we may want to consider moving forward with anything on this commission that could help towards kind of balancing this out, further balancing this out? Or are you seeing this more because of the retroactive nature of a lot of these current multi-family dwellings not being able to retrofit because one, either like the space, there isn't, it goes against the parking count, so they can't do it, or yeah, just wondering if it's just like a holistic approach in order to get to a more balanced distribution.
Yeah, so we thought about this as the county updated the green building incentive policy in the fall, and we included requirements in that policy for sort of residential and commercial buildings around EV charging. I'm happy to follow up with the link to what's included in the baseline prerequisites there. But basically, we said some portion of spots needed to have EV charging installed, but additional portion of the spaces should be EV charging ready. EV ready means the charger isn't installed, but the wiring is there. They have the capacity from the utility. There's a space on the breaker box for the charging. And so it tries to balance the need with like setting up the infrastructure early on, but like you don't need all of the chargers that you're going to need in the future today. And so I guess as you're considering new properties, it's not just like EV charger or not. There's also the other flavor of EV ready, where the wiring is installed, or even like less required is EV capable, where like the wiring is not installed, but just like the space on the breaker panel is reserved. And so those could be different ways that you think about helping properties prepare for the long term of adding EV charging.
The second was definitely appreciate the thinking about the setbacks and allowing for charging infrastructure essentially in the setbacks. I am curious though, for level 3, are you differentiating between the actual charger itself and then the dispenser? Because certain, like why level 1 and 2, because it looks like it's because of size or, aesthetic, and more like it looks like a dispenser. So whereas the level 3 has like different vendors have different types of equipment. And so like you're looking at the EVgo, which has like the dispenser and the charger in one, but there are other manufacturers that have a dispenser that's not attached to the actual charger. So I'm just curious why you're differentiating between the levels versus the type of infrastructure you're putting in the setback.
Yeah, so we tried to be sort of technology agnostic as much as we can to allow the zoning code to be flexible as EV charging technology evolves. The DC fast charging, actually one step back. So when we say like EVSE is allowed in the setbacks, EVSE electric vehicle supply equipment includes both like the charger and the box if they're separate, like you described. And I think especially for the DC fast charging, there's like the size of it, there's the voltage and like sort of safety considerations, and the 8-foot setback requirement is similar for other mechanical equipment, like large mechanical equipment, like air conditioning and other mechanical equipment that's allowed sort of up to 8 feet from the setback in the zoning code today. So for kind of all those reasons, that's how we landed on the differentiated setback for the fast charging.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to consider thinking about the actual equipment versus the saying level 3. So if you're installing a level 3 and if there may be a level 4, you might not necessarily have that flexibility to, you're gonna have to go, well, what's the next iteration, what it's called, rather than, identifying what the thing is that is, prohibiting you or concerning you for putting it in the setback. So appreciate that. Just think about that as you're recommending. And then lastly, for I definitely support alternative thoughts on parking counts and definitely encourage having some flexibility and stall sizes and so
Thank you.
Commissioner Vanderbilt.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of echo what everybody else has already said. I am curious though about the changing in the signage. And I'm wondering if there's actually going to be support to ticket people if they're not following the signage. Like, are you actually going to get that $25 ticket? And I'm also wondering if there's going to be like you know, if a person is coming around, if a person's coming around to check, are they going to truly see if that car's charging? Like, our EV is going to go park in the spot and then not actually charge their car? Or alternatively, are they going to go inside and do their shopping, their charging ends, and, you know, are they going to get ticketed if they're not out by the time they charge it?
Yeah, so just to be clear, the sort of ticketing, all these things that we're talking about are just on county property. Private property owners still have to kind of deal with enforcing parking on their property. On the county property, I've been working with the police enforcement team to sort of answer some of those questions that you posed. I think the planning commission, I guess, also was asking similar questions and proposed potentially maybe like a grace period of like in the first 3 or 6 months, maybe it's just a warning as opposed to actually giving a citation to help get people used to the new signage. And then I think with this new policy, like the enforcement would actually be like, is this person plugged in or not? Because as long as they're plugged in, the county is able to assess fees, whether it's fees for charging, or we have things called dwell fees, which is like when the charging session is finished, there's a $3 fee per hour up to $25 that someone would need to pay to stay in that spot. And so I think practically it would just be, is the person plugged in? It's really easy for enforcement to check. And yeah, that's how it would work.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and want to bring it back to one of the things you said at the beginning. One of the main priorities of your team is, even though tonight we were discussing EV charging, it's modal shift, and that's where the real impact is made, because an EV will run you over just like any other car, or could cause traffic and take up space and everything. But it's important that that the county moves with the times, and this is kind of a moving target because the technology is changing. But I think it's wonderful to see some clarity coming through finally on this issue.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you for all the feedback. Definitely will incorporate it into our board report. And yeah, thanks for having us tonight.
Oh, yes, we have one speaker on this issue. I'm sorry, I forgot public speaker.
Mr. Benton Blatt.
Hi, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Is photography permitted? Just like to get a photo.
Yeah, photography is permitted. It's a public space. It's a public hearing.
So the presenter presented about the difference in single family housing and multifamily housing. And she said that was like difference in access to charging, but I would disagree. And obviously there needs to be more research on this, but I think it's just because wealthier people live in single family housing and electric cars are expensive. And so because of that, I disagree on the parking thing. I don't think that they should be counted as parking spots for requirements, because there's going to be less parking for non-EV cars. And so your access to parking will depend on how much money you have, which is, I don't think should be policy of Arlington County. And obviously I don't really like parking requirements. I don't think anyone in this room does, but until those are gone, and I think they will be gone, I don't think that should be the policy where they, I mean, there's a reason that people are parking in those spots. It's because they're not always filled and parking is in high demand. Like at the central library, almost all the spots are always filled except the EV spots. I've parked there a couple of times. I never got fined, but yeah, I mean, I would say that there should be less EV parking spots at the library because there's a really big demand for parking at the library. And that's all I had to say for the most part. Also, what the chair said earlier, EVs still have a lot of the same problems as cars, you know? And Arlington is trying to go carbon neutral by 2050, but electric cars aren't good for the environment, really. You know, they have to dig up a bunch of rare metals to make them. And even though they don't emit carbon when they're using them, they emit carbon when they're making them. So it's the future of cars, but I wouldn't say it's the future of Arlington. That's all I gotta say. And I'll yield my time to the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, I think one thing that you touched upon is the generally weak parking enforcement in this county for all spots. And another thing that we didn't really mention and doesn't fully isn't perhaps the main explanation for why there are fewer EVs percentage-wise in multifamily homes. There's also people that live in multifamily houses that don't have a car, period. So they get around by different means. So that also contributes to the lower numbers. In addition to the access issues we already discussed. Unless someone has anything else, Commissioner Traer, like you ready?
Yeah, I was just to the point that you were going to say that, like, I'd be interested to see rather than the percentage of who owns EV, like the comparison to percentage of single family homeowners that own an electric vehicle versus multifamily home owners who own a vehicle to just drive that point home in one direction or another. But that's the thing that's like a high priority, but just an interesting data point that could be a point of discussion in the future. That's all.
Yeah, they have that mobility study that they do periodically. Perhaps that could be something in the study. I don't know how much more it would complicate it methodologically, but it's something to consider perhaps. Commissioner Flores.
No, I agree. Controlling for controlling for households with vehicles, I think would be an incredible improvement in the metrics that we're seeing. As a multifamily resident here in Arlington, we explicitly chose to go with a hybrid vehicle due to the fact that we don't have access to electric chargers in our existing apartment building. And we do see a significant portion of apartment buildings in Arlington that do not offer electric vehicle charging. And that also, I think, be a good data point to help with the board report.
Thank you. And just one other item to add, EV vehicle prices have been decreasing significantly over time, especially as the used inventory is increasing, as just general electric vehicle adoption is increasing. I think I saw, I'm happy to send along sort of some very specific data on that, but I think the perception that EVs are only for the rich is somewhat outdated, and that actually there are many affordable EVs that can be purchased today.
No, well, is it related to this point or something new?
This
because I mean, kind of the next agenda, because we could go on inequality on EVs. I personally don't think any new vehicle is affordable. You know, when you count in the insurance and property tax and everything, but you know, I don't want to have a discussion on vehicle affordability because that's not the agenda item. Yeah, so if there is anything related specifically to chargers and off-site parking, otherwise, let's move on to the next agenda item, because there's going to be a lot to discuss in these two items as well.
For the rich.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Stop sharing. Are you sharing?
First, you're gonna share their screen.
Right, we go first.
You go first, but are you?
Yes.
Presenting
I'll start. I got, I can present it.
Go for
Are
it.
you sharing?
She's gonna share right now. I'm just gonna start talking. while we get this up. You guys fine if I start?
Yeah.
All right, I'm fine. Good evening, everyone. Nicholas Cummings here on behalf of the applicant, BCN Homes. BCN is a small local business dedicated to the construction of homes and townhomes throughout the county. They've done a lot of work in the neighborhood and the county over the last 25 years and are very proud of the plan we're putting in front of you today. They've also had their eyes on this site for at least 10 years and were the runner-up to Artist Senior Living in 2017, who brought forth the previous failed elder care plan for the site. Suffice to say, there's been a long history with this site with multiple failed developments. My goal is to ensure that this is not simply the next chapter in that story, but its conclusion with the construction of these homes that bring enormous benefit to our community. I want to briefly recognize there is a negative staff recommendation for the case that we of course disagree with. I think most of that hinges on staff's position that the project doesn't conform specifically with the recommendations for the type of housing and the Langston Boulevard area plan, i.e. multifamily, which really has no bearing on the transportation matters we're reviewing here this evening. So without derailing the meeting, which should be focused on the transportation issues, the proposed townhomes work very well. They're desperately lacking in Arlington and very much allowed under the provisions of the plan. The project as proposed delivers a ton of community value, including improved transportation conditions over the currently approved site plan. So with that, we'll focus on transpo issues, and we have Felice here from Throw Slide.
So I think we wanted to just take a minute to get everybody kind of oriented with the site location, if you're not already familiar. So the project is located at 2134 North Taylor Street. It's just about a block or so south of Langston Boulevard, the corner of Cherry Hill Road and North Taylor Street. The site itself is about almost 2.8 acres, and it is zoned RA 818, and is town use on the site. So I wanted to just kind of show some of the existing conditions today. So as you can see, the site is mostly vacant. There are, and we'll talk about this more in some future slides, there are a number of kind of existing curb cuts to some of the previous uses there, that some of the homes that were there previously. So, but it is mostly vacant today. And then looking at the site plan for a moment. So the proposed plan includes 47 family-sized townhomes. They each have 2-car parking. They're about 3.5 to 4-story units, some with roof decks. Again, we'll talk more about the parking on one of the later slides, but the plan does include streetscape, landscaping, stormwater management, and open space around the site. So this dives a bit more into the parking on site. As you can see here, there's a total of 11 on-site visitor parking spaces. 10 of those are in the center of the site along North Utah Court. And there's one additional space up kind of in the northwest corner, an additional ADA visitor space. Then in addition to those, there are 8 public spaces along North Taylor Street along the east side of the site. And then focusing on the transportation improvements, again, as I mentioned, the proposed plan reduces the number of curb cuts on Cherry Hill from 6 down to 1. There is an additional access on the North Taylor Street side that is in line with the Langston area plan. Compared to the previously approved use, this is a less dense use. So the traffic impact is about half of the trips that it was in the prior use. So you can see here it's about half of the previous use. So I think the combination of the reduction in curb cuts and then the lower number of vehicles kind of all combines to improve the area for a variety of modes, including pedestrians traversing the site, as well as the other modes in the area. And then I wanted to speak to those a bit more here. So focusing on the street sections, this is the North Taylor Street section. So you can see here, it shows the new parking lane that I mentioned on the east side of the site on the west side of Taylor Street. This also includes Sharrows for bike facilities, which is consistent with what's shown in the Langston plan. It also includes new street trees, tree pits, a new sidewalk where there currently is no sidewalk on this section of our North Taylor Street along the site frontage. This provides a new sidewalk adjacent to the site, streetlights, and underground utilities. And then to talk a moment about Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill is a VDOT street, so there's been some additional coordination that's been underway with VDOT as part of that process. This section does include a new bike lane along the site frontage on the north side of Cherry Hill. Also includes bike racks, new street trees and tree pits along the site frontage, and then also a wider sidewalk and streetlights site frontage. And that really concludes our presentation. But we are answering any questions.
So I'll switch to the staff presentation. Say, right window. There's thinking.
It's been a long week for it.
Apparently.
Yes, question now, or should we wait till staff? Would you prefer that we wait till staff? I would prefer. Okay, till staff, but good job with the
Yes.
hotspot.
Yeah, we started bringing our own hotspot, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi here is.
No.
Send it to me.
Oh, you're here.
Uh, 1 second.
Can I just ask a couple? Yeah, just questions, just basic stuff. Is there on-street parking on Cherry Hill?
Not on Cherry Hill.
There would be none.
Not on Cherry Hill. We've got the bike lane that is provided on Cherry Hill.
Okay, so there's a bike lane. but
Yes.
no- Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's-
And
Yeah.
bike racks on
And
there.
so the 55 bus, is that correct? The ART takes Cherry Hill Road through that portion. It does not stay on Langston. What are the headways on that?
Five, headways are 55.
Yeah, it's,
So
yeah,
the
it's fine.
5,
15, 15 peak, 30 off peak?
yes.
Okay. But there are plans for, I don't know, I forget how the ART strategic plan there is. A theme of decreasing those headways on that. I forget. I believe so.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
It would require the funding.
Yes.
This is,
For the 55, they're
Yes.
planning on going to 10-minute headways on the peak period. It's currently 12. They're looking at getting commuter choice funding to do that.
okay, great.
And the off peak is 15 on weekdays, 20 on Saturdays, and 30 on Sundays.
Okay. Thank you, Dora. Thank you. Yeah, that I'm the resident bus expert. Yeah, that's good. Sherry Mendelson.
Sorry, my Teams crashed. I'm rejoining the meeting to present.
Okay. What's the distance to Boston Metro? And I've walked it before, I know, but it's maybe about
It's about a mile.
a mile.
Yeah.
1 mile. Okay, fine.
I think it's just over.
Just over.
Yeah, that looks like, but yeah.
Yeah, it feels good downhill.
Yes. Bike downhill.
No issue with my 20s. I would have been proud to save money and do it. But-
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got it up and running.
Okay, great.
Okay. So, good evening. I am Bryce Johnson with the Arlington County Department of Environmental Services. I'm full planner in the Development Services Bureau for the site plan application at 2134 North Taylor Street. This project is scheduled for the April board public hearing. The project consists of a single application for a site plan to construct 47 townhomes, as the applicant just covered. The site is located within the Langston Boulevard corridor. It is located at the northwest corner of Cherry Hill and North Taylor Street. I will note that Cherry Hill Road, as was mentioned before, is owned and maintained by VDOT, so they will need to approve any changes affecting that frontage. It is located in the RA818 Multiple Family Dwelling Unit District. The General Land Use Plan, or GLUP, designates the site for low-medium residential use and is located in the Langston Boulevard Planning District. There are currently 7 vacant single-family homes on the site today. Before we cover the project, I want to briefly cover the guidance from the Langston Boulevard Area Plan. The site is located within Area 3 of the area plan. The street network map is shown on the left and the bicycle map on the right. The plan identifies Cherry Hill Road and North Taylor Street as existing primary streets. For bicycle travel, the plan recommends a bike lane along Cherry Hill Road and sharrows along North Taylor Street. For site access, the plan recommends shared access with a neighbor from Cherry Hill Road. However, the plan also recommends multifamily development here. As was mentioned before, the applicant proposes townhomes with a different layout than anticipated by the plan and due to the different use. Therefore, staff's transportation assessment was based on the site access needed for that layout. The applicant proposes to construct 47 townhomes at a density of 16.8 units per acre. The proposal includes about 3,400 square feet of right-of-way dedication to expand and improve North Taylor Street. The homes will range in height from 39 to 52.4 feet. The applicant requests modifications to increase the lot coverage and reduce the front and side yard setbacks. I will note that the applicant is not requesting additional density, as is typical for a site plan. However, the site plan approval allows the applicant to develop with the requested zoning modifications and is also necessary to grant approval of the townhome use, which does require site plan approval in the Langston Boulevard Planning District. When reviewing the project, I'll focus on the transportation elements, since the Transportation Commission. I'll start with site access. On the screen is shown a plan of the site with north oriented to the top of the screen. The townhomes will each have a 2-car rear-loaded garage. The applicant is proposing 105 parking spaces. That includes 94 spaces within the garages at a ratio of 2 spaces per unit, plus 10 on-street spaces for visitors at a ratio of 0.2 spaces per unit, plus 1 ADA compliant visitor space. I will note that 16 of the units will include tandem parking as permitted for townhomes. To access the garages, the applicant proposes new private service streets. The streets which will connect to the public street network will be named, with North Utah Court connecting to Cherry Hill Road and 21st Court North connected to North Taylor Street. I will note that North Utah Court is aligned with the existing North Utah Street to the south. These connections are shown via the orange arrows on the screen. These new street connections will allow for the removal of the 6 existing driveways along Cherry Hill Road. Additionally, the applicant proposes 8 visitor bike parking spaces located at the roughly 10,000 square foot open space proposed at the corner of North Taylor Street and Cherry Hill Road. Next, I'll review the proposed Cherry Hill Road conditions. The slide shows the context of the plan of the site located on the left with north oriented to the top, the proposed cross-section facing east on the right, and a summary of the street and streetscape features in the table on the bottom. Today, Cherry Hill Road is approximately 30 feet wide, with 2 vehicle travel lanes, one in either direction, and there's an approximately 8-foot wide streetscape, 4-foot wide landscape strip, and 4-foot wide sidewalk. The applicant proposes to widen the street to a 31.5-foot wide width to allow for 11.5 and 13-foot wide travel lanes and a new 5-foot wide bike facility. The bike facility, which is a bike lane, is proposed along their frontage based on the guidance from the area plan. The applicant also proposes a wider 12.5-foot wide streetscape to include 6.5-foot wide tree pits and a 6-foot wide sidewalk. And again, as a reminder, this is a VDOT road, so they have to approve any changes to this frontage. Now we'll review the proposed North Taylor Street conditions. Compared to the cross section on the last slide, we are now facing north of North Taylor Street. Today, the street consists of an approximately 22-foot wide condition, including 1 7-foot wide parking lane and a 15-foot wide yield condition street. The site's frontage contains no curb, gutter, or streetscape. The applicant proposes to widen the street to approximately 34.8 feet. This new condition will retain the parking lane opposite the site, provide approximately 11 and 10-foot wide travel lanes, and a new 7-foot wide parking lane along the site's frontage. The applicant also proposes sharrows in either direction for bicycle travel according to the area plan. Additionally, the applicant proposes a new 13-foot wide streetscape consisting of a 7-foot wide tree pits and 6-foot wide sidewalk and installation of new curb and gutter. Next, I'll provide a quick highlight of the proposed private service streets. On the right are cross sections of the streets which will connect to the public right away. As I mentioned before, these will be North Utah Court, shown on the top, and 21st Court North, shown on the bottom. At the entrance to the site, North Utah Court will be 23 feet wide before expanding to the 42-foot wide conditions shown in the image. The entrance has been aligned with the existing street to create a 4-way intersection. The 42-foot section shown is required 26-foot wide rear fire aerial access, as well as on-street parking. In this section, the street will consist of an 8-foot wide parking lane on either side, plus 13-foot wide travel lanes. The streetscape on either side will be 10 feet wide with 5-foot landscape strips and 5-foot wide sidewalks. The bottom image is the proposed 21st Court North section. The street will be approximately 23 feet wide to allow for fire access through the site with 11.5-foot wide travel lanes in either direction. And then there will be landscaping on the north and south sides of the street. So here's a graphic of all of the internal streets, including the 2 I just covered for ease of reference. In orange, there will be one other service street, which also provides fire aerial access that will be 26 feet wide. This does include 2 13-foot wide travel lanes in either direction, and as well as providing access to the rear-loaded garages. In red, the remaining streets will be 23 feet wide to allow for fire and vehicle access through the site. This includes 2 11.5-foot wide travel lanes in either direction. In blue is the 42-foot wide section for North Utah Court that I mentioned before. I will note that the bottom or southern end of North Utah Court, I have it shown red as the entrance from Cherry Hill Road. I have this shown as 23 feet wide, but based on VDOT comments, VDOT may require this to be 30 feet wide for their approval, but that is something that continues to be ongoing discussion between staff and the applicant. VDOT anticipate that'll be finalized during the CEP or civil engineering plan review. I have also marked the internal 5-foot wide sidewalks in the dashed green lines. These internal sidewalks link the front doors back to Cherry Hill Road, North Taylor Street. Generally speaking, where the streets abut the individual garages, there'll be no sidewalks or streetscape, but they will otherwise be provided or shown. And then for context, the public sidewalks along the public streets and through the public spaces are also shown in the darker green lines. And as I mentioned before, to support the improved North Taylor Street condition, the applicant proposes an approximately 3,400 square foot right-of-way dedication along their frontage. This is shown in the orange on the screen. Moving on from the transportation aspects, I do want to cover a few of the other proposal highlights. First, all units will include some green building elements, such as the use of Energy Star appliances, water sense fixtures, and EV-ready infrastructure. Additionally, the applicant proposes a roughly 10,000 square foot open space, privately owned public space at the corner of Cherry Hill Road and North Taylor Street. As was alluded by the applicant, however, generally speaking, that project does not support the goals of the Langston Boulevard area plan with specific areas of concern listed on the screen. First, the project is inconsistent with the land use goals of the area plan. The proposed use of the existing low-medium residential club designation is inconsistent with the area plan's recommended low office apartment hotel designation, which envisions up to 72 units per acre rather than the proposed 16.8 units per acre. Basically, more specifically, the area plan recommends denser multifamily development at this location. Second, the project does not support the housing goals of the area plan. The proposal includes no affordable housing commitment, either via a contribution or committed affordable units. These would be required if the applicant were to pursue a higher density as recommended by the plan. Third, the project does not sufficiently support the public space goals of the area plan. The proposed 10,250 square foot open space is about 59% of the size of the 20,000 square foot open space recommended for the site by the area plan. Additionally, the project includes no internal private open spaces, which are recommended by the plan, with the exception of the private roof terraces. Finally, the proposal does not sufficiently support the tree canopy goals of the area plan. The proposed 26% tree canopy does not achieve the 35% tree canopy recommended by the area plan. Based on these issues, staff recommends denial of the site plan because it is inconsistent with the Langston Boulevard area plan. The application was accepted for review in late October of last year. We conducted online engagement in early December. The first SPRC was held in early January, followed by the second in February. Project is now proceeding through the commissions ahead of the April County Board meeting. Tonight, the project will be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the County Board at their upcoming meetings. As I mentioned before, staff recommends denial of the site plan due to issues I highlighted earlier. And staff similarly recommends that the Transportation Commission recommend denial of the site plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Ovakoya, do we have any public speakers? Maybe get them in before we start discussing. For this item. Okay, so before I open it up to everybody discussing, just kind of like want to recap some of to establish some baseline facts here, because in many ways this resembles the Inner Roslyn site we had before, where the grounds for denial are issues outside the scope of the Transportation Commission. So the board report was, I felt, pretty well written and argued the case for denial based on compliance with the Langston Boulevard area plan pretty compellingly. And as you just recounted, it was issues with expanding land use and density, achieving housing production targets, increasing community access to public space, and finally, tree canopy issues. None of those are transportation issues. The project I feel is in compliance with the master transportation plan that delivers several improvements in accordance with this plan, including the new bike lane on Cherry Hill Road. And in terms of transportation elements of the Langston Boulevard area plan, the staff report itself states that the proposal, quote, provides the recommended LDAP public street and streetscape improvements. So I say this not to stifle discussion, but just to keep us on focus, to keep us focused, because I think there's a lot to be said. We would think many of us would prefer more units in this area. At the same time, this is a lot that's been undeveloped since 1999. So it's kind of one of difficult trade-offs, and that's a discussion for the planning commission and for the board itself. But for us tonight, I'd like to just focus on the master transportation plan and the transit related elements, the transportation related elements to the Langston Boulevard area plan. So with that, let's open it up to questions and comments. Commissioner Flores.
My first question is, in the previous failed site plan for Artis Senior Living, were there any, and I don't know if either parties will be successful in answering this, but were there any transportation components that led to why that could not be stood up? Or is there reasoning for why the Artis Senior Living didn't go through? Is the lack of funding, or is it?
I can answer all of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I represented Artis. I've been working on this site since I started Walsh Lucci almost like 10 years ago. It was one of the first major plans I took through, and then Walsh, late Art Walsh, my mentor, and I both spearheaded that elder care zoning ordinance amendment as well, which helped modernize the zoning ordinance here because we had basically 1950s rules for elder care. COVID did not help the elder care industry. In fact, it decimated it. Occupancy restrictions throughout most states in the country that are still not lifted in some states, despite, I mean, it's just a tough question, right? I mean, it's risky to put more people in one space, but also where else are they going to go, right?
Right.
People clamoring to get in them. And so there's still demand for the use in some ways, but it became impossible to finance. Absolutely no one would lend money. There was another attempt by another senior living provider, and they worked with my firm and other team members, probably from this team, to do a minor amendment. It took a while to right size that project for their program, and it was going to be approved, but then the contract fell through and everything fell apart. From there, the site, the owners of the site went to try to find somebody else to buy it because they knew they could build a senior living facility, and at that point they were paying to hold it, and it was just losing the money.
Sure.
So they went out to market, and there were a lot of bidders, and I talked to at least 20 of them. All of them, other than 2 townhomes, and the only 2 that were even looking at multifamily, one couldn't do it, and there was no real bid of any kind, and the other was only looking at it as a finite option, which obviously, while it could have been multifamily, would have, and they couldn't buy it. There was no value match there, but you're going to get the streetscape upgrades or anything else like that. So the owner sold it to BCN, who had been pursuing it for a while, and they own it outright. And so they are proposing this townhome community that we think really does accomplish a lot of plan goals. And I can get into the rest of the stuff, which I don't really want to get too far afield on. But that's the history of it. And so there were, looks at this site by multifamily developers, but it was simply the rents can't cover the construction costs, not even close. And so, because it's just too far from the metro, and it's just not a feasible housing type here.
That's helpful. I don't necessarily have any other questions, but I think given the fact that this hasn't been developed in 30.
It really goes back, because
30.
you can go back to like whenever these houses were last occupied is the last time that anybody lived there.
It's like the late 80s or something.
40 years.
But then it became under new ownership in 99 or something like that.
And it was family owned, it was inherited, et cetera. There were tax issues with how they were going to sell it and when. And so all of those things take time when we have like people who don't live here but have a financial interest in it that helps things languish.
Yeah, so when I think about the considerations for the transportation. Don't see.
Commissioner Singh.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know, either staff or applicant, I'm not sure to ask this to, but on the bike facilities, I think you mentioned it was going to be in that public open space, right?
Are you talking about the bike parking?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's 8 bike parking spaces in the open space.
Okay, and so like where, I'm just trying to get a sense of like, do you have like, is there kind of a sense of what that is gonna look like? Is it gonna be a covered shelter? Like, what does that like look like when I'm there parking my bike?
Just visitor racks, unless you.
Visitor racks in the park, and that's to invite people who want
I
to
think
bike
the
to.
bricks are outside of the open space. They're on the streetscape on the frontage on Cherry Hill.
Okay.
Not within the open space.
Commissioner Ludwig. A couple of questions. One, maybe I missed it. What is the projected kind of mode split on kind of, let's say, commuting and life? The nice thing about that site, and I'm really familiar with the neighborhood. I move through there all the time. It's not far from where I live. Is you can walk to the village shops nearby. There's also other things that are walkable, down Langston Boulevard toward the Safeway. So I think there is always room, often townhouse communities are located in completely car dependent locations, and this one's not. It's a mix. It's also perfectly feasible if you walk a mile to get to Boston.
Yeah, I agree.
So, this is from a transportation perspective, perfect may be the enemy of the good in this case. Certainly with the way the market's shaping up. But yeah, if you had any information on the profile. Number two, do you have any comparables of kind of another townhouse development like this that's similarly situated that you've worked on or represented, and kind of are you using that as a basis for understanding the behaviors? I mean, obviously, when you build a townhouse community and you're building garages, you're making it very easy to live a car dependent lifestyle. But this site is not a place where you necessarily need to live a car dependent lifestyle. So I just wanted to take those things into consideration because I think it's a strong site, but it's a strong site to be able to espouse some of the things that Arlington is looking to do and to keep people healthy and walking.
Yeah, certainly there's, the capability for EV chargers. The garages are obviously, usable by the tenant, or the tenants, the owners, for whatever they want, right? So you can have cargo bikes in there, other things, different mobility devices, et cetera. I agree that the walkability of the site to local shopping in the, Langston Boulevard is great. I think that's probably something. The clients behind me can speak to their experience because they built, especially BCN with Frank's help, as fully here behind me, built plenty of communities, including nearby in Arlington, and they can speak maybe to their experiences with, folks bringing in other types of transport or walking, et cetera. Obviously, they sell them, so that life after that is not something they're monitoring closely. But Felice, you might know more.
Sure. Yeah. So I do have like on the mode split. We assumed about 75% auto, and this is for the peak period travel. So kind of like those commuting trips. About just under 20% transit, and then the rest is biking and walking. So about 7% combined, like biking and walking, kind of just, which is not included in that transit number. But I think again, to your point, that's the commuting times. I think the other times those shopping trips to the Lee Shopping Center, I think will definitely occur kind of if not during the peak time.
Can you say that mode split again? Sorry, you ran through those really quick.
Sure.
70% auto.
Yeah, about 76% auto.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. And then the other, sorry.
Yep, no, that's fine. Transit was 17%.
Okay.
And then bike was 3%, walk was 4%.
Excellent.
I'd be shocked if it's not like a lot of for rent products where there's parking, but then if people want it, they use it because they own cars. It's a very expensive units. Folks also own cars as well. I'm not saying the townhomes are, they're actually not. The rental ones are. And you see people parking cars, but not necessarily using them every day. And so I think it's going to depend a lot, folks work at home, right? They're not driving as much, but a conservative estimate from the traffic, I think is good.
One other follow-up on that. So down Langston Boulevard, we have another site that we're going to be looking at and talking about tonight. I remember reading in there that the mode split for that site was a lot lower. is that, I think it was a 25% difference. So this is 75, that one's 50.
Yep.
Is that the difference? Is that the delta between a townhouse and an apartment or a condo? 25%
I think it's,
on the same boulevard, on the same?
yeah, I think it's more
Corridor?
location based than the type. I think that one, just the location of that space is, I think about half the distance or so from Metro as this one is. So I think that's really the difference. It's just the location compared to this one. In terms of
In Metro.
yes, yeah.
It's right on.
It's right on Lakes.
Yeah.
So that baffles me a little bit, but okay.
I will clarify too, like when applicants scope the MMTAs with, like, they do that specifically for each site with staff.
Yeah.
So it is a discussion of what the appropriate modal split is based on the site.
Yeah. And staff, to build on that a little more, staff also has kind of countywide, there's been a lot of study done of the mode splits by neighborhood in the county. So that's kind of a starting point for this discussion. So it's based largely on that.
And if we assumed a more progressive mode split or something like that, I think that we would be punished from other directions as well. I do think there's a lot of folks who would say, wait a second, that's not the life that I experienced. You guys aren't planning well enough to handle the volumes of traffic. And in reality, the site, if you compare it especially to the currently approved use, the elder care use that won't be built, the traffic numbers are so much lower, right? And I know that you all understand that, but I just want to say that for the record that we're talking about a project that will have significantly less vehicular traffic than the previous approved use. Because there were some concerns about that on neighbors.
I think, Nick, it's important to add, I'm Brian Normal, the owner of the site and the developer. It's important to note that in the staff report, this project is strongly supported by all neighborhood civic associations surrounding the property, as well as all neighboring apartment buildings, as well as condo communities. So there's direct support for the project.
Yeah, it's too bad we Commissioner like told me couldn't attend tonight. He's kind of remain, although we have many Princeton Boulevard experts, I think he's the main one that does a lot of work on the plan. But he was pretty while acknowledging that this isn't, the dream project for the site, was very supportive of it. Other questions?
I just had one more. Utah Street, this does not warrant a new stop sign, four-way or anything, because you're connecting it, so it's straight across.
Yeah, the volumes generated by this would
Not enough to warrant that.
Yeah.
The bike lane is not going to be protected, right? That's not the plan. All right, I have kind of concerns about that, realizing that it is a VDOT site, a VDOT road, Cherry Hill, but given deliveries and everything, like it's an issue that we're seeing across the county of competition for curb space. I don't imagine like a DoorDash driver or someone pulling into the thing might just do it from the street, run out because they have this time pressure. So I would really like to see a protected bike lane to make sure that that space is reserved specifically for bikes, and is it going to be taken up by delivery vehicles or any other type of vehicle popping in? I do acknowledge that there are not as many units here. It's not like a family. It's not going to have the same issues as a Roslyn site, but still, we want to make sure we have a functioning network that people of all abilities will feel comfortable biking down, and the protected bike lane would contribute to that.
What's the speed limit on this road?
Right now,
30.
What was the question?
Speed limit on Cherry Hill.
Yeah, it's 30.
It's 30. I understand the desire for hardened bike facilities in that context. Especially, I need to familiarize myself more with the transportation master plan and the long-term life views for this area. There does seem to be quite a few transportation options within walking distance, not to the extreme of like all the way down into Boston, but the various the 55, 56, the 870, and those provide some good connections to Shirlington, Tyson, so on and so forth. So like trying to keep this in the focus of the transportation purview necessarily into the housing market, which we could spend hours just talking about that. Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, I'd say like,
Sure.
but yeah, happy to talk about that elsewhere. But just trying to be conscious of the things that would make this just relevant to our conversation. And there, I also noticed there's a bike share station like a block away. So there's appropriate facilities, but simultaneously of the routes that I mentioned, the headways are a little bit lower. And at least this is why I need to familiarize myself more with the master plan. I'd be curious what the plans are for, and these not necessarily be answered now, but the plans are for providing like increased headways for this area that would be able to even accommodate an apartment building of like that size that wouldn't just induce a lot of driving because you have more people living in the space and not really having access to the places they need to go.
And I love that point too, because like I'll say this, a multifamily building here, should anyone have been able to do it, which they can't, would have certainly been a 1+, maybe 2 spaces per unit type building, because to lease units this far that are that expensive, you almost certainly have to provide a lot of parking. And so we were talking about a monster building, the garage coming up out of the ground and a donut in the middle that pressured probably the open space and everything else about the site, including the tree canopy almost certainly, of course. The transit options nearby, I think everybody on our side does love. That's why people want to buy and build in Arlington, and why Arlingtonians want to stay in Arlington and have a house to live in. And so that's part of the reason that this project is so viable, is because the demand is there for this type of living, and people want to do it in a place like Arlington where they could walk to a shop or take a bus to Shirlington or something like that. That's part of it, is keeping people here and having them live here in this type of housing that they very much want. That's the market side of that. So sorry for
No, but that was kind of the point I was trying to get at. If like Art refuses to go like cross the river, so that I don't know if that's ever going to change, but like you don't have direct connections to downtown, and without that, you're just inevitably going, or like as many connections to like to get elsewhere. I'm worried that you're just be inducing a lot of traffic.
Perceptions of the bus system also drive rents and where people are willing to live, and the functioning of it has to catch up for long enough for those perceptions to change. There are enormous challenges, ridership, classism, and other sorts of feelings about the bus network in the United States versus Europe. It's very tough.
Yeah.
I mean, my commuting patterns have recently changed, and I live up in the northern part of the county, but I would frequently take the 55 to transfer to what previously, I forget what it is, to the Madison Center termination bus. I think the thing that you would hope for in the 55, and I think that maybe Commissioner Mendelson mentioned earlier, was that there is a plan within our strategic plan to increase the headways to 10 during peak, which I think makes a big difference around planning. Yeah. And again, it's a 1-seat ride to Roslyn. So this is it's a very desirable, it's a very, very desirable corridor.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, I think with both of these projects, it really is kind of, we're at the beginning of this changing corridor. The conditions hopefully will be very different a decade from now. So it's kind of you have this rightfully so aspirational document, the Langston Boulevard area plan, which I mean, it's more than aspirational. It is a guiding document, but and then we have the reality that we have right now, which frankly isn't ideal. So, any other questions, comments?
I did. I had a couple more questions about the bike parking situation. So this is more of just a comment. Any kind of bike carousels, it's important to consider that a lot of people are biking families and we have bigger bikes. So we don't fit in those typical like standard, anything that has a bottom to it, like my bunch bike is, I can't get over stuff easily. So just keep that in mind. And then it's on the Cherry Hills side of things.
Yes, it's they're
Yeah.
I can use this.
Yeah.
Yes,
One second.
so everyone can see. I think you'll see there's two like U racks that are on, or just outside the park along Cherry Hill. And then I think there's others, right now.
I'm just wondering, are they like exposed to the street more? Like they're not tucked in within the community?
No.
It's kind of hard to see, but can you see my cursor?
Yes.
No.
So
Oh, sorry. Bottom
Okay,
right. Yeah.
Okay,
we're down here.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really.
okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think that I'm not saying that this is a bad spot, but I personally like the idea, if I'm going to visit somebody in this community, that my bike is tucked away, right? I don't want it to be on a main street where there's a lot of like walking traffic, car traffic. I want it to be even better if I can see it from where I am, like inside the building, you know?
Those sorts of things are easily adjusted in final landscape plan, and Bryce is here. He might be involved at some point in, post-approval plans and all that if we can get there, which I hope we do. And so certainly adjusting things like that feedback can be taken into account later. Because we basically try to put them right now where they fit and they seem accessible and make sense. And then we fine tune what I'll call little things. I know they're important, but little things like that later usually.
Right.
And typically, the site plan conditions require that the visitor bike parking be within 50 feet of like an entrance.
Okay.
And this one, we're kind of like, where does it fit?
Yeah.
So we kind of felt that, the public space made sense. But yeah, it might be able to tweak a little bit with where it fits into within 50 feet of the public space.
Good. Thank you. So can we pull up the motion?
Yes.
I just want to. So I move that we do not vote on this one, the language of that one up there, because I don't feel like it has to do really with the transportation elements. I have a different motion here that I would like to read out, and if I could get a second to vote on that, if people agree on it. So I move that the Transportation Commission find that the application for site plan amendment SPLA -00027, is not inconsistent with the master transportation plan or the Langston Boulevard area plan transportation elements, and so recommend that the county board approve the application to permit the construction of 47 townhouse units with modifications for lot coverage, front and side yard setbacks, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 2134 North Taylor Street. And I can email that to you in Luminance, so we have it in black and white. I'll second. Yeah. Thank you. So that's kind of the TLDR. This project is in compliance with the MTB and transportation recommendations within the Langston Boulevard area plan. So that's kind of narrowing at that, and we'll leave the heavy debate to the planning commission for these other elements. Does anybody need that reread again or anything? All right, then we can move on to voting. Commissioner Forrest.
Yes.
Commissioner Hussain. Commissioner Locker. Commissioner Ludwig. Aye. Commissioner Mendelson.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye. Commissioner Traer,
Aye.
Commissioner Theo,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vanderpool.
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes with 8-4 is 0 against. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. Well, I think very well, so. Okay. Yeah.
Presenting.
Myself, Zach Williams, Mike Gosky.
Chair left for just a moment and said be right back.
Yeah, and you.
Zach's gonna run it
Okay,
remotely.
I was gonna ask.
Literally presenting, got it.
Aye.
We will not all be doing that.
Hi all, Zach Williams with Venable. I apologize, I'm not there tonight in person. I am out of town on spring break with the family, but you have Cassie and Mike there, the real experts in person, which is great. I'll be controlling the presentation and I'll have a couple slides I'll go over initially for the project. So I don't know if the agenda item has been officially called yet or not, but I don't know if Chair wants to do that or we can just go ahead and get started. Just
Let's get started. Thank you.
okay. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and open up our presentation. Great. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. So we're here tonight to talk about a new site plan project at 3130 Langston Boulevard, known colloquially as the Walgreens site. And the developer for the site is Rooney Properties. Cassie is going to introduce Rooney and the site in a second. Here, you also have myself, Zach Williams with Venable as a land use attorney, and Mike Pincos with VICA as our transportation consultant, who will also be presenting tonight. So Cassie, I'm going to turn it over to you for a quick introduction.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Cassie Guy with Rooney Properties. Rooney is a small local family-owned and operated developer here in Arlington. Our offices are actually just about a mile up the road from the project site and I guess here as well. We are we pride ourselves on integrating into the community. I'll say that because we are long-term holders. So we actually really do become part of the community, which is nice. Being a small shop grants us the opportunity to really focus on high quality mixed use and residential projects. I'm here tonight with Mike and Zach to present 3130 Langston Boulevard. We have worked closely with staff and the community over the past couple of years, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all tonight.
Great, thanks, Cassie. So I'm going to go over a couple slides here just to kick us off, and then I'll hand it over to Mike to talk through the transportation elements. So this was the first project that was filed under the Langston Boulevard area plan. It was filed about a year and a half ago now. At this point, it's been a very long review process. Since the plan was filed, it got lapped by the Lucky Gardens site, which was just approved in February. However, this will be the first market rate project to go before the board in April. The review process has been very community oriented, as all Langston projects are, but this one in particular, part of the reason for that is that this site borders 4 separate civic associations: Lion Village, North Highlands, Cherrydale, and Maywood. And we have had individual and collective discussions with all of those associations for the better part of 2 years now. What you see here is just a summary, if you will, of our community engagement. There's been quite a bit more individual meetings, calls, site meetings, site visits in addition to this, but these are at least the official meetings that we've had with the various stakeholders on the Langston Boulevard corridor, as well as the Langston Boulevard Alliance. You can see it's been an ongoing and lengthy process. And one thing that we've heard throughout this process from the transportation standpoint is that, you'll probably hear this tonight, there is a lot of concern about the existing conditions at this intersection, and what the county is going to do to address those concerns. I think a lot of folks feel like it's overdue, that these issues get taken care of. And this project coming through is a good opportunity to raise these issues, and the Rooney folks and the team have welcomed that feedback. And I think it's safe to say that everyone is in agreement that the intersection needs improvements. There's safety concerns there, and that we hope to be a partner with the community and the county as this moves forward. As a quick overview of the project, this is a market rate redevelopment project. It's a project of a site that previously had a drive-through Walgreens pharmacy on it with a surface parking lot. It'll be redeveloped with a 12-story or a 13-story building, depending on how you look at it, with 300 residential units and 361 parking spaces. There'll be a variety of unit layouts and sizes. And overall, the project implements the recommendations and standards of the Langston Plan. There'll be retail along street level along Langston Boulevard, as well as a public plaza hybrid. And you'll see in a minute here how the layout of the site matches the Langston Boulevard plan, but also uses the existing topography to its advantage. So here's a conceptual rendering of the site, looking at the site from Langston Boulevard. As you can see from this site, this angle, it will read as a 12-story building. The reason for that is the retail is a double height retail space along the entirety of Langston Boulevard. And that's the way the building will primarily address the primary frontage, which is Langston. Looking at the site, turning the corner here and looking at the, that is a partially above grade parking garage that will be screened with architectural elements as well as a green wall. You're also seeing a elevated courtyard at the upper level there. I won't talk too much about this. I'm going to try to stick with the transportation, but just trying to provide some background and context here. The pawn shop site is adjacent. Initially, the goal was to try to consolidate and get that site as part of the Rooney site, but the pawn shop folks, unfortunately, were not interested in selling. And in fact, the National Pawn Shop entity came in and exercised a right of first refusal to buy the site. So it's not part of the site plan, but it is something that is still there and is obviously going to remain, at least for the time being. Looking at the site, so sort of a bird's eye view here, conceptual rendering, looking across Langston Boulevard, you can see the way the site addresses not only Langston, but also the off-ramp from I-66 there to the right. And here's a little bit higher up aerial view, looking down on the site, looking at 66 there. You can see the elevated courtyard pool and the way that Kirkwood Road and Langston Boulevard have frontage along the site. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes here. Here's the site plan. Just looking at this aerial view, you can see the site has quite a bit of greenery that's going to be planted amongst trees, biophilia, landscaping. The site is going to meet the 35% tree canopy, which is an important goal of the plan and something that we have worked very, very hard to do. And we will be doing that, which is great. I think we're all excited that we got to that important goal on the plan. site's also doing a lot of other things here that we won't talk too much about tonight, but it involves a lot of overland relief, stormwater concerns, flooding concerns that exist apart from this development, but that this development has been asked to try to address to some extent. And so we are doing that in certain areas of the plan, not necessarily related to transportation, but everything is interrelated in its own way. So I just did want to mention that. And that, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Pincos with VICA to walk through the transportation elements. Mike.
Hello, everyone. So right here, we're just going to orient ourselves with the site again. The site is located on the south side of Langston Boulevard, just east of the I-66 off-ramp and west of Kirkwood. It has Kirkwood frontage along the southern boundary of the site. Today, there's 3 driveways, 3 curb cuts, 1 curb cut on Langston Boulevard adjacent to the pawn shop curb cut. And then we have 2 curb cuts today along Kirkwood. Next slides. So this slide summarizes some of the transportation elements of the project and some of the improvements. So I'm just going to kind of run through these. Number 1 is the consolidation of the driveways. We are closing the curb cut on Langston Boulevard and consolidating the curb cuts on Kirkwood to where you see the 1. The red arrow is where the loading dock is, and just to the right of that will be the access to the garage. Highlighted number 2 up at the I-66 off-ramp. We are providing improved accessible ramps across the off-ramp, and as well as the curb ramp to cross Langston Boulevard at that location. Number 3 is the improved Langston Boulevard streetscape, and we'll show the streetscape later, but it includes a buffered bike lane, separate clear sidewalk, and then it has a building zone with an arcade that we'll show in the cross section. Number 4 is an improved bus stop. There's only a flag there today, so the bus stop would have a shelter and bench incorporated into the proposal. Number 5 is actually off-site. It's adjacent to the pawn shop. Anybody familiar with walking that sidewalk? It's a very narrow sidewalk. The utility pole that's right in the middle of that 3-foot sidewalk is going to be removed with this. So, we obviously don't control that property, but by removing that, we'll improve the sidewalk width there and, make it a little bit easier to traverse. Number 6 and 7 are on the east and west sides of the site. There will be permeability to the site north-south with sidewalks and buffered tree lines on the east and west side of the property. On particularly number 7, I think what it does is provide an opportunity west of the site on the opposite side of 66. There's marked bike lanes along Langston Boulevard. There's connections to the Custis Trail on that side. As you traverse underneath I-66, as a cyclist, you either have to use the sidewalk, or if you're an avid cyclist, you could be in the road. But along our property frontage, you would have the buffered bike lane for a short segment now, but in the future, the vision is to have this facility go east-west. But number 7, that connection, that provides connection potentially to somebody that is destined to go southbound on Kirkwood, and they could connect to the southbound bike lane on Kirkwood. Number 8 is improved Kirkwood streetscape. It's kind of floating in there, but it's meant to be along the Kirkwood frontage, and we'll show that. Wider sidewalks, wider buffer along there. Number 9 is 2 new pickup drop-off spots located adjacent to a public open space, as well as a secondary entrance to the building in that southwest corner of the building. I will say that there's additional retail parking within the garage, as well as there's 5 southbound parking spaces in front of the pawn shop just east of the site. And then on the northbound side of Kirkwood, there's about 15 on-street spaces on that side. And number 10, given the consolidation of the driveways, there is a median break today that serves the northernmost driveway. With the consolidation, we're going to be modifying that median, closing the existing break in the median, and then opening the median break at the driveway location. You can go to the next one, Zach. So this shows in plan view on the top, and then section view on the bottom, the Langston Boulevard streetscape. Our improvements are essentially happening on the right side of the section. And as I mentioned, this is in line with the Langston Boulevard area plan, 4-foot green zone, 5.5-foot bike lane, a 6-foot tree zone, a 9-foot sidewalk, clear sidewalk, and then we have 1.5-foot building zone. And we are working with some challenging grades along the frontage to make the retail access accessible. So there is ramping along the frontage. And the design solution was to incorporate it in an arcade to get it into that, into those retail doors along the frontage utilizing the arcade. The arcade is approximately 10 feet wide, so that it might have an opportunity for some seating against the building and still have some clear area to walk by. Go to the next one, Zach. So here's the Kirkwood frontage. Our building is on the left side of this section, and as I mentioned, there'll be an improved tree zone, a 6-foot tree zone, 6-foot clear sidewalk, and then there's a 2-foot building zone. As I mentioned earlier, there is a southbound bike lane there today, which we are going to retain. And then the 2 Pudo spots just to the left of the loading adjacent to the park space. Go to the next one. So we did do a MMTA for the project. The estimated trip generation and person trips is summarized in the table at the top. The mode shares are slightly different than the project you heard before us. We are geographically along the same corridor, but we are further east, not necessarily in Cherrydale area. So we do have a higher assumed transit split of 41% and a reduced auto split of 52%. And then just for reference, we have the driveway counts from the traffic study. I will say the driveway currently is estimated to operate at a level of service C with a estimated delay of about 15 seconds during peak periods to exit the garage. We're only estimating like a 1-car queue, so there shouldn't be any backups to get in and out of the garage. Northbound queues from the traffic study on Kirkwood approaching Langston Boulevard, on average, they're about 100 to 125 feet. And then the max queue is approximately 160 feet. Our driveway from the stop bar at Kirkwood is about 600 feet. So there shouldn't be any issues with cars queuing all the way back to our driveway to prevent people exiting the driveway. Zach mentioned it, the intersection of Kirkwood and Langston is the focus of the study in the most part. It does have some movements at the intersection that operate at capacity. Probably the worst one is the eastbound left on Langston Boulevard to turn on Spout Run. We looked at the signal timings as part of the proposal. There is an opportunity to increase that green time. It does come at the expense of east-west green time, but it could improve operations overall and reduce that queue and help process some of those left turns there. Go to the next slide. This slide summarizes the bicycle parking, vehicular parking, and loading. I won't go into any details, but we are meeting the minimum requirements. I did fail to mention where the visitor bike parking is located. There, we can go back to the slide later if anybody's curious, but they're along Langston Boulevard in the northeast corner and the northwest corner. They're split. There's 3 U-racks in each location for a total of 12. Next slide, Zach. So this is the first, the ground floor of the parking garage. So when you pull into the garage, the dark gray spaces, they're a little bit lighter on here, but the darker tone spaces, essentially the first row when you pull in to the right, those are designated as retail spaces. And then the small ramp on the right-hand side, there's a few spaces immediately adjacent to the planned retail area. And then I'll point out in the bottom left, again, it's a little tough to see, but you can see the small arrows along the western side of the building for that northwest sidewalk. That's a entry point to the building. And then just left to a little bit north of there is where the elevators are. And when we flip to the next side, you'll see that that elevator bank and that door provides direct access to the bike parking. So here you can see this is the P1 level, and the bike parking is adjacent to the yellow shade in the bottom of the plan there. And these are the auto turn movements, utilizing the garage for the trash and loading. We don't expect anything larger than a 30-foot single unit truck. And the vehicles can make the movements efficiently in a single movement. This proposal will include a transportation demand management plan. These are just excerpts of the standard condition, but we will commit to this and develop a TDM plan to help choose non-auto modes of transportation. And that's our last slide.
I'll handle the staff presentation.
Right.
Assuming Teams won't crash on me again. Okay. So again, my name is Bryce Johnson. I'm the Principal Planner in the Development Services Bureau in DES for the Walgreens site plan application. This is also scheduled for the April County Board meeting. The project consists of 3 applications. First is a GLUP amendment to change the site's designation from public and service commercial to medium office apartment hotel. Second is a rezoning request to rezone the site from C2 service commercial community business zoning district to CO 2.5 mixed use zoning district. The third is the site plan application for a 13-story mixed use building with 300 residential units and 7,200 square feet of ground floor retail. The GLUP amendment and rezoning are intended to facilitate the proposed site plan development. The site is located on Langston Boulevard to the east of I-66. On the screen is an aerial of the site with north oriented to the top. You can see the site is bounded by Langston Boulevard to the north, the I-66 off-ramp to the west, and Kirkwood Road to the south. I will note that Langston Boulevard and I-66 are both VDOT roads, so therefore VDOT approval is required for changes affecting those frontages. The existing zoning GLUP designation, which I mentioned on the previous slide, are also shown here for reference. These designations are consistent with the existing development, which is the 1-story pharmacy building, the surface parking. As was mentioned before, this is formerly Walgreens, which is now vacant, hence the project name. The first item for consideration is the GLUP amendment. The applicant proposes to amend the site from public and service commercial to medium office apartment hotel. Regarding the existing designation, I will note that staff research indicates that the portion of the site designated for public use appears to be a holdover from when VDOT was acquiring additional right-of-way for Interstate 66 or I-66. When the additional land was not needed, VDOT turned the land back over to private property owners, but the GLUP designation appears to have remained. And that's not just for this site, just kind of throughout or along I-66. For this site, staff has been treating the site as designated for service commercial, which is consistent with the existing pharmacy building and the underlying zoning district. The site is located in the Langston Boulevard Planning District, for which there's further planning guidance, Langston Boulevard Area Plan. Each site under this plan is expected to apply for a GLUP amendment on a project-by-project basis when proposing a site plan. This GLUP amendment is consistent with the future GLUP map recommended by that area plan. The second item for consideration is the rezoning application. The applicant requests to rezone the site from C2 service commercial community business zoning district to CO 2.5 mixed use zoning district. This is the appropriate zoning district to implement the requested medium office apartment hotel GLUP designation. Before we cover the project itself, I do want to briefly cover the guidance from the Langston Boulevard area plan. The site is located within Area 5 west of the plan. The street network map is shown on the left, and the bicycle map is shown on the right. The plan identifies Langston Boulevard and Kirkwood Road both as existing primary streets. For bicycle travel, the plan specifies an enhanced bike lane along Langston Boulevard, which will be sidewalk level with landscaping between it and the street. There are existing bike lanes along Kirkwood Road. Staff's review of the proposal utilized the plan guidance based on the area plan. So that brings us to the third item, which is the site plan development proposal. The applicant proposes a 13-story mixed-use building. That 13 stories does include the mezzanine level that was discussed earlier. This is a roughly 73,000 square foot site. This will include 300 residential units and 7,228 square feet of ground floor retail, an overall floor area ratio, or FAR, of 4.16. The building will be 136 feet in height, but totaling 148.5 feet when including additional 12.5 foot wide, 12.5 foot tall mechanical equipment on the roof. The site plan includes zoning modifications to allow additional density exclusions, reduce the number of loading bays from 3 to 2 to allow shared loading between the retail and residential uses. A reduced setback from Kirkwood Road and others noted in the staff report. And then on the right is a rendering of the proposed building looking southeast from across Langston Boulevard. When reviewing this project, I'll focus on the transportation elements tonight, starting with site access. On the screen is a plan of the site with north oriented to the top. The applicant proposes to provide parking via a partially below-grade garage, access from the rear of the building at Kirkwood Road, shown via the yellow arrow. The garage includes 4 levels, 1 below-grade parking level, 1 at-grade parking level, and 2 above-grade levels. Loading and trash will also be accessed from Kirkwood Road, shown via the purple arrow. In providing access from Kirkwood Road, the applicant will be removing 2 existing driveway entrances, one from Langston Boulevard and one from Kirkwood Road. To accommodate bicyclists, the applicant proposes 2 bike storage rooms for Class 1 bikes within the garage. The room for residents will be located below grade, while the room for retail staff will be located at ground level. There will be a total of 140 bike parking spaces, including the 128 Class 1 spaces within the garage, as well as 12 visitor spaces. 6 of the visitor spaces will be at the northwest corner and 6 at the northeast corner of the site, near those primary building entrances. Finally, I will note that there is an existing bus stop on Langston Boulevard, which provides access to ART Route 55. The applicant, as was mentioned before, proposes to enhance the stop by providing an ADA-compliant landing pad and bus shelter, shown as the blue B for Langston Boulevard. And now I'll review the proposed street conditions, starting with Langston Boulevard. This slide shows a context plan on the site located on the left, with north oriented to the top. The proposed cross-section facing east is on the right, and the summary of the streetscape features is shown in the table at the bottom. The applicant proposes to generally retain the existing Langston Boulevard street section, but to modify the streetscape along their frontage. The street will reduce from about 93 feet in width to 92 feet in width to increase the streetscape. The streetscape, the applicant proposes an approximately 26-foot wide streetscape consisting of the 4-foot wide landscape strip, the 5.5-foot wide bike lane, a 6-foot wide tree zone, a 9-foot wide clear sidewalk, and the nearly 2-foot wide building zone. As was mentioned before, the applicant is proposing a sheltered pedestrian arcade immediately behind the building zone. This is because the building has been elevated to increase stormwater resilience during flooding events. However, the arcade is intended to provide a level pedestrian walkway with the retail. I do want to note this because the area plan recommends a wider 5-foot wide Shire building zone. However, we found the provided building zone still maintains a buffer against the clear width sidewalk, while the arcade provides that area for interaction with the retail entries. So combined, these fill the intent of that recommended Shire zone. Where there's the bus stop I mentioned before, there will be no tree zone to allow the bike lane to route behind the bus stop to avoid conflicts between bicyclists and transit riders. And as I mentioned before, the applicant is removing the existing driveway entrance from Langston Boulevard. And finally, again, I want to give the caveat that this is a VDOT road, so they have to approve of any changes to this frontage. Next, we'll review the proposed Kirkwood Road conditions. Compared to the cross-section of the last slide, we're now facing northeast on Kirkwood Road. The applicant proposes a revised street section to accommodate the new site access, but generally retain the existing street condition. The applicant proposes to close the easternmost driveway entrance and the associated median break, reconfigure and widen the remaining driveway entrance instead of the proposed garage and loading bay entrances, and provide a new median break for this entrance, and widen a portion of the street to include the 8-foot wide on-street parking that was discussed earlier for pickup and drop-off activities. The new typical street sectional will be 44.5 feet wide, consisting of a 6-foot wide southbound bike lane, 11-foot wide southbound travel lane, 7.5-foot wide median, 18-inch gutter pans on either side of the median, 11-foot wide northbound travel lane, and 6-foot wide northbound bike lane. Where there is street On-street parking, this section will be 50 feet wide instead, compared to the typical section. This will include the 8-foot wide parking lane and a narrower 5-foot wide median. For the streetscape, the applicant proposes a typical 14-foot wide section consisting of a 6-foot wide tree zone, 6-foot wide clear sidewalk, and a 2-foot wide building zone. Where the streetscape abuts parking, there will be no tree zone or building zone. This is adjacent to a proposed privately owned public space at the southern corner of the site. I do want to note that the area plan recommends a greenway along this frontage to accommodate stormwater relief, but acknowledges that the actual design will need to be determined through the site plan process. During review, the applicant worked with staff to assess the existing and proposed conditions relative to we found that the stormwater impacts were different than originally anticipated under the area plan, because the area plan anticipated that the site would consolidate with the neighbor being the pawn shop that was mentioned earlier. Because consolidation has not happened, there's a different development condition being proposed. Now, rather than one larger new building, we have it one building with a smaller footprint and the existing building, so the stormwater flow paths have been different. So to address this, the applicant now proposes an intentional overland flow path eastern property line rather than along Kirkwood Road. Staff is supportive of the proposed relief because it addresses the project stormwater impacts, even if it means we don't get the greenway along Kirkwood Road as originally anticipated. Moving on from the transportation aspects, I'll cover some of the other proposal highlights. First, the applicant proposes to achieve LEED Gold certification and participate in the Green Building Incentive Program at the 0.35 FAR level. This supports the community energy plan. Next, the proposal includes several affordable housing commitments. The first is an over $1.7 million contribution to the County's Affordable Housing Investment Fund, or AHIF. Second, the applicant proposes a total of 19 on-site committed affordable units, or CAFs, including 13 available at up to 60% area median income, or AMI, and 6 available up to 80% AMI. Then the applicant has an option of providing either an additional 866,000 AHIP contribution or one of different options for CAFs either on site or nearby or elsewhere in the county. This supports the area plan and the affordable housing master plan. Next, the applicant proposes a roughly 4,400 square foot privately owned public space at the southern corner of the site. It supports both the area plan and the public spaces master plan. And then finally, the proposal includes the construction of an 8-foot by 8-foot box culvert along the eastern property line, as well as an overland relief corridor to support the public storm system, not just their immediate impacts. These support the area plan and the stormwater master plan. The application was accepted for review in November of 2024. We conducted online engagement late January and early February of last year. The first SPRC was in July, followed by the second in December. The project is now proceeding through the commissions ahead of the April County Board meeting. The project was considered last week by the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance Review Committee, or CBORC, because of impacts to the resource protection area along Kirkwood Road. CBORC did vote to support the project because it increases the amount of pervious service in the resource protection area, or RPA, because of the incorporation of bioretention planters, sustainable design features, and trees within the RPA. After tonight, the project will be reviewed by the Planning Commission, the Housing Commission, and the County Board at their April meetings. Staff recommends approval of the project because it helps fulfill the goals of the Langston Boulevard Area Plan. Therefore, staff recommends the Transportation Commission similarly support the project. Here's a slide outlining the recommended motions for the Transportation Commission. With that, I'm happy to conclude my presentation and respond to any questions.
Zimka should let's proceed with the public comments first.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Todd. I'm the president of the Cherrydale Citizens Association. We live just to the left on the other side of 66, Cherrydale. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of 4 civic associations. The other people couldn't leave because of the very short, only 2-day, 48-hour notice that the civic associations got about tonight's meeting and this being on the agenda. Anyway, so I'm speaking on behalf of Lime Village, which is on the lower right-hand corner, North Highlands, which is on the upper left-hand corner, and Maywood, which is the upper, North Highlands, upper right-hand corner, and Maywood is the upper left-hand corner. And what we're here to speak about is, and I invite you at any point to come meet me on the site. This is the worst stretch of roadway from a pedestrian and cyclist point of view in any part of Arlington. And actually, I submit any part of Washington, DC or Alexandria as well. It's incredibly, it's near impossible to cross. There are two terrible intersections here. And there is the need for a mid-block crossing as well. There is the infamous Spout Run intersection, which is a very high traffic accident site. A pedestrian has to cross 7 lanes of traffic in less than 30 seconds. I have led county 2x2 meetings there. I have led several other site meetings there, and everyone has been afraid to actually cross the street at the crossing walk there because it is so dangerous. It is also there's also a very dangerous intersection at the I-66 off-ramp, which is technically the front entrance to this building. To cross Langston, you first actually have to cross the 2 intersections. First, you have to, because there is no crosswalk directly across Langston, even though there is a traffic light there. So first you have to cross the I-66 off-ramp intersection. Then you have to wait for another light cycle and cross 6 lanes, which quickly becomes 7 under the bridge there, to then get across Langston. And then you have to walk back either to the Custis Trail entrance or the Lime Village Shopping Center, which you can see to the north of the site. So to cross the street, you essentially have to walk 3 sides of the square. Obviously, the scale of these problems is well beyond what the developer can do. But what is happening, and what I'm here to ask of you tonight on behalf of the 4 civic associations, as well as the future residents of this building, as well as everyone that will be using the retail here, as well as everyone else in the community that will be benefiting and already uses the heavily used Lime Village Shopping Center, is that Arlington County is currently planning to do a transportation study of this stretch of Langston. However, they have prioritized the study to come last and not first. And they have committed no funds to actually implement the results of that study, when in fact, VDOT, we have identified, that we the citizens, that there is, because of the I-66 inside the Beltway widening, VDOT has provided the county with $20 million of funds that could be put to use in exactly this project. So the ask we are making, and the ask we have made at the county board in our 2 virtues and will be making at the April 18th or April 21st county board meeting, is that the county board direct the county manager to direct the county transportation planning staff to reprioritize the study so that this comes first. And we're not doing this at the expense of other parts of Langston. The safety issues and the size of the studies in the other parts of Langston are tiny compared to, they're only talking about like intersection improvements at a number of stop signs, no bike lanes or nothing on other stretches of Langston. And the county has given us no reason other than this intersection is hard that they are putting this study last. And we're also frustrated that the county has refused to commit any source of funds to carry out this thing. And we think the idea of adding, how many 100 units is this? 300 unit apartment units to this block and leaving this site as is literally creating a death trap. Now, yes, the county is currently putting new traffic signals and ADA ramps at Spout Run. Will that alleviate any of the safety issues? None. What will alleviate the safety issues is conducting a timely transportation study and implementing that transportation study so that the transportation improvements are coming online at the same time that this building is coming online. And so my ask of you tonight is that you join us in requesting the county reprioritize the traffic study to come first and start as soon as possible, even the second half of this year, and that the county identify and commit to providing, using VDOT or other funds to implement the results of that traffic study to address this issue. And again, if any of you would like, I'd be happy to meet you as early as tomorrow in the rain or Saturday or anytime or after this meeting, since we're already staying up all night anyway. For those of us that start every morning at 5, this is starting to seem late. To show you what a disaster this is from a pedestrian experience, I will comment that the other thing, I didn't know there was a time limit. The last thing I want to note is that when Takis came, he illustrated perfectly what currently happens, which is that people, when they would try to get from Lion Village to the site, they run right across the middle of Langston Boulevard, 7 lanes of traffic, and Takis almost got killed by a car. It was a very, very close call. If my time is up, then that's the end. But I am here to answer any questions you have. And if any of you want to take me up on the tour, my email address is president@cherrydale.net. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Yeah, thank you. I did participate in the 2x2. I believe you did as well.
I did.
Thank you.
And I do agree that the county needs to do a lot of work on this road. It's pretty unanimous, and that a lot of this work is outside the scope of the applicant for many reasons, many complicating reasons, including the current VDOT ownership. And once again, bring it back to, I wish Commissioner Antoni was able to attend tonight, but I was able to confer with him. And in addition to these motions that the county proposes, I'm going to be proposing another motion specifically related to the sequencing of the studies, because I feel the county is already behind and being reactive on this issue. We can't wait until, I believe it goes in fiscal year 2027. We might not have any changes until 2030. You're going to get several hundred residents. All the destinations are across the street. It's already a dangerous intersection without these residents. So I think like I'm gonna leave it at that and give other people an opportunity to comment and question. But I do appreciate you coming tonight and raising these decisions. Let's go with Commissioner Flores first.
I was the transportation liaison for this project and attended the SPRCs as well as the September walkabout where Takis was turned into Takis, which was unfortunate. And I really appreciate how this project has come together. I feel like the applicant has been very responsive to the community conversations. And the amount of housing that will be going there is exactly what we would like to see with the Langston Boulevard plan, and the consideration for transportation has been noted. I know that we had talked about multiple entrances of parking versus pedestrian. One question I have is, the main entrance for this site is still going to be at the intersection of the off-ramp from 66 and Langston Boulevard. Is that correct still?
Define main. And I'm not trying to be guilty by any means. I think the primary entrance for anybody doing a pickup, drop off, or whatnot will be,
it's going to be around
the corner. But
right.
We do find that entrance on Langston, albeit at that corner, to be really important to not only the plan and what was originally specified in the plan, the building design itself, like the way our architecture presents itself. So there are a number of factors. We're not just putting an entrance and exit there, you know, for the fun of it. There's a lot of factors. That's why.
And I think I've voiced this concern to y'all before, and there's solutions, right? So it's just like communications and Google map placement, all that, but just being considerate of pedestrian entrance versus vehicular entrance is going to be key for where this site is, because just based on your multimodal study, we're seeing that there's going to be more than just vehicular traffic, and so you will have people who are coming in by bus stop or by bicycle that are going to come in that front entrance on the Langston Boulevard, and then you'll have the rest of it that needs to be rerouted. So just making sure that goes in there. We also talked a little bit about, obviously you don't know what types of businesses may go in, but one thing we did talk about was the fact that the business is going to be in the front. One of the businesses that was discussed and is in no way like set in stone, but a daycare, daycare having vehicular drop off is one thing that we had mentioned key. So just keep that in mind as you start to think through who is going to take up that retail space. And then you have 4% EV, which of the total is 14.44 spots of the 461 total parking spots. Is that entirely EV or EV ready? Is there more EV ready spots?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of went over that quickly on our slide. There will be 4% EV in place day one. That equates to 15 spaces, and an additional 11% or 38 spaces would be EV ready.
Okay.
For a total of 15%.
And how many of those EV spaces are ADA EV?
I don't have that number.
That's fine. As we've learned today, there will now need to be one that is EV. So just want to kind of
That'll
like,
work its way out through the parking management
absolutely.
approval. Yep.
And then, yeah, just want to voice consideration for the parking survey. This is something that you and I have talked about, as well as several members of the community have come forward with this. We've had community reach out to our team, seeing a bike lane, narrower turn lanes, slower auto speeds, much wider and better sidewalk in front of the building, which you all are pretty much taking care of, which is good. Thank you. But when we do the amendment for the transportation study, I want to make sure we include language in there to ensure that the transportation study considers the increase in units for this site, but also the other buildings that may happen across the street, because that is in the plan to be done. And one of the concerns that we had, and I don't remember if it was from staff or from Caucus himself, was if they do the transportation plan, there's a chance that that can get left out because there's nothing on the table for it. And that's a really big one, because that could easily double the amount of units we're about to see in that intersection from 300 to 600 or more. That's it.
I think I already have it included. We'll be putting it up, the language up on the screen later. I just had to send it to y'all earlier just to be in compliance with us not having an official meeting.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Are you done? Or,
I'm done.
Or I see you have a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
I think Commissioner Theo had his hand up.
Yes. In fact, I thought I had it up. I'm not sure why it dropped off before. Must have hit a button. Yes, I completely agree about it, the additional recommendation out of the county board to reprioritize the transportation study for Langston Boulevard. And I also agree with the speaker's strong suggestion that they use the bulk of, or at least a large portion of, the I-66 widening funds from VDOT for this intersection, for this stretch of Langston Boulevard. This is the trickiest, most difficult and most dangerous stretch of Langston that there is. And having visited the site and the shops across the street many times, I completely agree about the difficulties of traversing this whole stretch. It would be great if the transportation study had been done already, and we could use that, use this as an opportunity to start some of the improvements. That's concerning and worrying to me. The county is definitely delayed and allowed that study to take way too long, to now we're losing an opportunity potentially. But I do have a question, and this would be for staff regarding the greenway on Kirkwood. Could you go back and explain again what the changes are and what the loss is of the greenway?
So the area plan recommended a 50-foot greenway along Kirkwood Road. Basically, let me find it. I have a slide showing it. Basically, not just along their frontage, but also the neighboring site. So I pulled up a slide. So this is the open space plan from the area plan. Kind of turquoise color along Kirkwood Road and then along Spout Run Parkway, where the greenway was intended to be. The actual design of that greenway, however, needed to be figured out at site plan once we had more details. Like I mentioned before, because this is really just one half of the block, it's a bit more difficult to implement the greenway. If you do it just along their frontage, you start channeling stormwater towards where there's no more greenway at the neighboring site, and it makes things a bit more difficult for the neighbor, to put it lightly. So that's why the applicant spent a lot of time working with us trying to figure out what the appropriate stormwater mitigation was. The greenway recommendation wasn't necessarily a transportation recommendation, but a stormwater recommendation. Obviously, they overlap. It has the dual purpose, which is why I mention it. But that was the I don't know if I want to characterize as a loss, but the trade-off. So there's no greenway, but instead the stormwater flows through the site itself over land, and then they also are installing an 8-foot by 8-foot culvert. That doesn't have much impact today, but it gives us some more options for how we address the stormwater in the future for the public storm system, because we could then extend that in the future. But instead, for just this site, they've got that intentional overland flow along their property.
The 50-foot greenway, as it was originally planned, you say that that wasn't strictly a transportation aspect. What was the transportation component? Was it just a 50-foot wide undeveloped green space that was to not have any bike paths, not have any sidewalks, or were the bike paths and sidewalks included in that 50-foot greenway plan?
That was to be determined at site plan. So I've got this other slide with some excerpts of the text from the area plan. It really kind of left things open so that we would have those options to figure out what really needed to happen for the stormwater relief. So let's say that the sites were developing together, we would be looking at this guidance for the 50-foot greenway, but then also still trying to figure out what works for the amount of stormwater flowing through here, and then working to accommodate the existing bike lanes that are planned to continue.
Yeah, it seems kind of foolish on staff's part to assume that these two parcels would have been merged and be redeveloped together. I know that there were talks to do so between the property owners, and I know that fell through, but still to make that assumption and sort of bake in this greenway plan based on that assumption seems kind of foolish. I hope that staff has not done that in other sections of the plan, of the Langston Boulevard plan. Because now we see, we don't have those two parcels merged. They are being developed independently, and we're losing a greenway, which even if the transportation component would have been minimal, it still would have been a very nice environmental and stormwater management feature for Langston Boulevard. So yeah, so you say that because the two parcels are now being developed independently, it makes planning for the greenway much more difficult, and therefore it probably shouldn't be done at all. Question for, I guess, staff and the developer. On the north side of the site, there's the bike lane. To my knowledge, there wasn't any concrete plans for a bike lane in the Langston Boulevard plan, correct? But yet the developer is adding one here, which is a good thing. I'm assuming in sort of a attempt to future-proof or with expectations that bike lanes would be included or added by adjacent property owners along Langston Boulevard?
So the area plan does recommend a bike lane along Langston Boulevard, the northern portion of their site. So I've got the cross sections pulled up here. So this is the top cross section being for Langston Boulevard. It does specifically recommend that sidewalk level bike lane. That's what they're putting in on their front, and then it's really just one piece of the puzzle pieces. So as we see redevelopment, expect to see that bike lane continue east and west.
Okay, I see. I stand corrected. that resolves, so yeah, that takes care of my questions. It's unfortunate about the loss of the Greenway. I do feel that that could be planned for in a similar manner to how we are planning for the bike lanes, even though this development would, even though this development only implements one tiny piece of the bike lanes that are planned for Langston Boulevard, we could feasibly take the same assumption with the Greenway along Kirkwood, but that's it. Thank you.
Could I address the Greenway question? Because I think it's an important one. So what you're seeing today is the third or the fourth iteration of a plan that had varying forms of a Greenway. And I won't go through all of the sausage making and how we got to where we are, but what the final condition is essentially a shifting of that Greenway to where it will now be between the pawn shop and the Walgreens sites. And the primary purpose of the Greenway in this area of the plan was for stormwater overland relief. That was the primary purpose of it. And the reason that it shifted is because staff, through many months of analysis, along with our engineers, determined that the overland relief was really needed between the sites, between those two properties, and not along Kirkwood. It has a lot to do with, thank you for the slide, it has a lot to do with topography. It has a lot to do with how the water actually flows in this area. And initially, we had proposed the Greenway along Kirkwood, and we found, and staff found in particular, that just wasn't going to accomplish the goal. It would have been nice. It might have looked nice, but it wouldn't have actually accomplished the goal of overland relief, because that's not where the water is going. So I think this speaks to just a larger sort of element of the Langston Boulevard plan. It's a very big plan. It's a very ambitious plan. And not every site was able to be studied with enough granularity to know exactly where certain features should go. And this is a perfect example of that. There's a recognition that we needed overland relief, that we needed some sort of flood protection. We didn't know exactly where it needed to be. We thought it might need to be along Kirkwood. It turns out that's not right. That's not where it needs to be. And Bryce might be able to speak to this even more than me as far as the technical side of it. But just to sum this up, there's not as though there's a loss of that feature. It's just been relocated to where staff and the applicant together have determined that it will be a better location for it.
I see that explains it very well, and that that was a very good explanation. And now I understand that because there will be two separate buildings, that does open up the opportunity for the stormwater aspect to be taken care of between the two properties. And there really wouldn't be much loss in the transportation aspect along Kirkwood, because we still have the bike lane and the 6-foot sidewalks with this site plan development. So thank you for that. I did actually have one other question, if there isn't anybody else in line to speak. So we have the speaker from Cherrydale representing his and 3 other civic associations. I believe this site technically falls within Ballston, Virginia Square, which was not listed as those civic associations. I haven't seen anything, but Ms. Obakoya, have we received any comments from Ballston, Virginia Square Civic Association?
No.
Okay.
I did have something you wanted to.
Yes.
But I want to kind of.
Yeah. Commissioner Theo, I don't know if you heard, Ms. Obakoya said no.
Yeah.
Do you have other comments, questions?
No, that is all for me. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, the site is located within the Lyon Village Civic Association.
Yeah.
The Lyon Village.
Okay. I don't know if that's changed, because when I was vice chair of Ballston, Virginia Square, this was within our borders, but maybe things have changed since then. Thank you.
Commissioner Traer.
Thank you. There's a couple of comments first, then I'll ask it. Barely all comments, but I did I agree with a lot of the comments that were made by the public speaker and elsewhere that this intersection is terrifying. I've actually only driven through it, even though I don't really drive all that often. And it's pretty horrifying. From a car, from a pedestrian, everything. It's not great. So echo the sentiments that this should be prioritized for updates. And I saw that the mode split was a little bit generous on the transit. It seemed again that you only have the 55 running through there. I would love to kind of repeat what I said before. Would love to see a little bit more frequency in the future plans for this area to get more people incentivized to taking buses, especially because again, this is a line that doesn't even go into DC. This is a slightly even less transit oriented place than the last one that we were just talking about, but it's going to have more people living there. It is at least a little bit closer, but I'm glad we're having discussions about the different things we can do to make this a more attractive place to navigate. On that last note, the exit and entrance for the parking garage, just want to be sure that we're conscious of daylighting that enough. I think that's where you see lots of conflicts. I heard talk about a wide sidewalk space. That's great. There's a slight curve in the road. I can imagine that probably causes a bit of sightline issues. So just want to be conscious of that. Like that's where you see lots of conflicts with that bike lane there. It's a 30-mile-per-hour road as well. So cars are going pretty fast, and that might also be part of the conversation. And we could talk about like potentially reducing the speeds on that area. But yeah, just specifically when it comes to that parking garage entrance and exit, just some slight concerns about conflicts with pedestrians and bikers there. That's all.
Commissioner Ludwig.
Yeah, I do utilize this area, this intersection by foot, by bike, by bus, and by car frequently. I don't know why my life converges in this place.
It's Italian.
The Italian store.
I'm not going to explain why exactly. Reasons. So I understand it's really one of the most intimidating places to be in the county. Another one that I'll just cite that I think is possibly even more intimidating is South Route 1 and Glebe. That's a really interesting place. At Porsche dealership.
Yep.
That's a difficult spot to be and very, very intimidating. But this one's up there if we had a prioritized list. And the fact that we're intensifying development in this area is absolutely in line with the area plan, right? It's what we intend to do. So I couldn't be more supportive of the idea of really kind of prioritizing a study that would help unlock some improvements to this intersection, to this segment. Navigating as a pedestrian from the apartment building over to say the new Sprouts, that would be a harrowing journey, but a journey that many people will take. And if there's a way to make it less harrowing, let's do it. One of the fundamental flaws of this whole area is that as the Parkway was developed and Spout Run was developed and 66 was developed, the way to get from 66 to the Parkway to go south is here. So unfortunately, this portion of Langston bears the brunt of that kind of continuity of flow, of commuter flow, of airport flow, of so many other things. And the block that this development is on sits squarely on that segment. And so I think it's a vexing location. It's appealing, and I like applaud all of the things that you've done. It's more about the fabric of the way this segment sits awkwardly in Arlington County against the flows and the chaos of that intersection. And when you look at Vision Zero, I don't have the exact data, but it feels like Sycamore and Langston is a tricky spot by the East Falls Church Metro. And then this also is kind of a cluster of a lot of difficult activities, and there's just a lot of confusion through there. So it's just a really tricky spot. One thing that I am concerned about is just with the traffic coming at sometimes higher speeds, even though it shouldn't, eastbound on Langston and then coming off of the off ramp. How do we protect that area, I knew you're proposing, I think, to add one lane. How do we protect that kind of retail interface with the building from the traffic and other things? Maybe the study could answer that in more detail. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm very supportive of the idea of adding this resolution.
Yeah. I think this one's even more intimidating than the South Cleveland one, because over there, you at least get a rhythm of stopping and starting.
Yeah.
This, you're coming off the GW Parkway. Like everyone's aggressive on the GW Parkway. You're bringing that mentality, and it's just like a completely different pace that you're entering a completely new environment. Whereas over there, you're kind of already on the lookout for people. I think like some positive things that could be done is having 2 left turn lanes on that, because that's where most of the traffic is queuing up to turn on the spout. There's a lot of little things, but I think like this, that's why it's important to do the study, because unfortunately, that's the workflow we have right now. Even when something is obvious to us, you do the study, and then you do the solutions based on that. But I kind of feel bad for the site because it's creating this new condition that the road really doesn't match, and all the destinations are right across, and we didn't even really discuss how do you get on a bike from this building because the trail. It's like, yeah, I mean, we could talk all night about how terrible of a context this is. Any other commissioners?
I had a question. I absolutely agree the need for the study. I'm just curious of the prioritization and, staff's how are there some considerations that made it lower on the priority list for a study? Sometimes we just don't there may be something like, DDOT is actually studying this already or whatever. We know that's not the case, but just curious if there was something that we're not maybe seeing or don't have insight to that you might.
So I wasn't part of that decision process. So I can't provide too much insight. I can just provide a little bit of extra context so the studies recommended by the area plan were split up into 2 phases. There's the Area 5 study that we've been discussing tonight. You've been discussing tonight. That was scheduled to be the second phase, basically. The first phase is areas 2 and 3 of the area plan. So it covers a wider portion of the Langston Boulevard corridor, but that's really just focusing on specific intersections. So even though it's covering a wider area, the scope of it's a little bit more contained. So that study is actually supposed to be quicker. And the current timeline, and Anubin can correct me if I'm wrong, it's supposed to be later this year. That's supposed to complete. So it started last year, working towards completing at the end of this year. Once that's done, then the Area 5 study is scheduled to begin. So that's kind of the phasing. And then additionally, there's currently a VDOT STARS study, strategic. I always get it wrong. There's a STARS study. It's a safety study that we're doing with VDOT for a portion of Langston Boulevard in Area 5. So it's not for this segment. It's further to the east of the site, but I offer that just so that you have a bit of context of there are different moving pieces looking at safety along Langston Boulevard. I also do want to clarify too that there was the comment about the 20 million from VDOT. I don't know if it's the same 20 million. I would imagine it is, because if not, it's quite the coincidence. But there is $20 million specified in the budget, the capital improvement plan, for improvements along Langston Boulevard from these 2 studies. So there is some money already budgeted. So I just wanted to offer all that for some context. Again, I can't speak to the complete rationale for the timing, but there are different moving parts, and staff is very aware of the concerns of looking at the future improvements for Langston Boulevard.
Commissioner Boris.
One of the things that the public speaker was identifying was that there's no money of the $20 million that's been identified for that. Does staff tend to allocate a portion of the pot upon beginning the study?
It's just in the,
Some of it has been.
it's just in the budget for dependent on the recommendations from the studies,
Okay,
with the expectation that more would be designated in the future.
okay. So I think my immediate consideration would be, what if the results of area 2 and 3 eat up so much of the $20 million pot that there's none left for area 5?
I think that would have to be a budget decision.
Yeah.
I think like in general, the county is gonna need to become a little bit more agile on some of these corridors, because you might undermine the whole plan if things aren't studied quickly enough, and then once they're studied, implemented. I live off Columbia Pike, and that's been a disaster. And a lot of businesses have, they would, for whatever reason, I think there was certainly a contribution that the construction of that was supposed to be completed in 2021, and we're still not fully done. So I think that's like the major concern here. We have this great plan. We have a nice building being proposed, but this road that was made to ferry commuters into DC is now needs to do something else for the people that are actually going to be living there.
Had one comment about the agility, because I know that's something we like in Arlington, is that we control most of our roads, so usually we to respond. But Langston Boulevard, just as a reminder, is a VDOT road, so that is an additional factor with these studies. They do take time, and that's something we've actually experienced with this intersection. We're wrapping up some signal improvements, but that project started over 10 years ago because of just different complications with VDOT, partially different complications with VDOT. We had some initial proposals that didn't work with some improvements they wanted to do. There were some need for easements, but the long story short being, like, that is an additional consideration. It does take up extra time.
Well, and also I don't think the county is sometimes as aggressive enough in getting control of these roads that it is, as it should be, or even when it does. Like, for example, we have on Fairfax Drive, it didn't go all the way to the off ramp, so you have to include VDOT for a certain part of it when you had an opportunity perhaps to take control of that whole thing. So I mean, there are a lot of factors that go into this bit behind the scenes, but this is a huge opportunity for Arlington, and it's an ambitious plan. And I don't think we have all of the information and the elements in it yet for it to succeed. Any other questions, comments?
I did have a quick question, and just want to echo what everybody said about the intersection. It's terrible. And I fully support any kind of, fast track getting that transportation study done. For the bike parking, so if you're gonna go shop, there's bike parking on street level outside, right?
Correct.
If you live there and you have a bike, you're parking in the garage.
Correct.
On the lower level.
P1 level.
So how do you get down there from the, like?
So you have the option of using an elevator adjacent or driving through the garage.
Okay. Okay.
There on the western frontage of the building, you can see the two black arrows close to the southwest side. If you come in the door there, it's a hallway directly to the elevator bank.
Okay.
And then you can take the elevator down, and then the bike room is right adjacent to it.
Oh,
If someone's cruising on their bike and just wants to go through the garage, they can.
That's amazing.
It's also the service elevator, so it's larger and, ready for impact.
Yes, yeah, that's fantastic, because sometimes biking through a garage is it's maybe one of the worst parts of the trip, because there's just not as much visibility, and there's just a lot of reasons. So I love that there's the option to take the elevator and that it accommodates a big bike. Fantastic.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? All right, Mr. Johnson, if you could throw up those resolutions. Okay. So I move that we first recommendation. Second, please. All right, and the recommendation reads as recommend that the county board to adopt the attached resolution to approve the general land use plan amendment. GLPA 24-000004 to change the destination from service commercial to medium office apartment hotel located at 3130 Langston Boulevard, RBC number 15-012-041. For my spreadsheet here. Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Singh.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker. Commissioner Ludwell.
Aye.
Commissioner Mendelson.
He
You left?
He left.
Okay. I vote aye. Commissioner Traer.
Aye.
Commissioner Thea.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vanderpool.
Hi.
Okay. The second recommendation, which reads as recommended the county board to adopt the attached ordinance to rezone RECN 24-00004 the property from C2 Service Commercial Community Business District to C-0-2.5 Mixed Use District located at 3130 Langston Boulevard, RPC number 15-012-041. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Singh.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Ludwell.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Traer.
Aye.
Commissioner Thea.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vanderpool.
Aye.
Okay, and the final recommendation from the staff, recommended a county board to adopt the attached ordinance to approve a new site plan SBL on 24-00004 to permit the construction of a 13-story building with 300 residential units and 7,228 square feet of ground floor retail gross floor area with modifications of zoning standards for additional density exclusions, loading spaces, coverage and placement standards, and all other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 3130 Langston Boulevard, RBC number 15-012-041. Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Flores.
Aye.
Commissioner Singh.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Ludwell.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Traer.
Aye.
Commissioner Theo.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderpool.
Aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Zibikwe, if you could pull up my lengthy, or actually this is Commissioner Lindell-Meese.
Boy. Recognize that because
It's coming.
yeah.
Lost it.
You had it.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm gonna read it out and you can have a discussion about it as well. But reads as, whereas there are now 4 major site plan residential mixed use projects proposed on or near Langston Boulevard, Roslyn and I-66, and whereas the project, when built, will have over 1,000 new residents who will be driving, using transit, and walking along and across Langston Boulevard, and whereas 3 of the county's Vision Zero hotspot intersections are along this corridor, and whereas the configuration of Langston Boulevard was designed and built in the 1970s primarily to move traffic in and out of DC, and whereas that design is contrary to the goals of the Master Transportation Plan and the Langston Boulevard Area Plan, and whereas funds for transportation improvements may be available from I-66 tolling, whereas the county has scheduled a study of the Langston Boulevard corridor from Roslyn to North Kenmore Street in Cherrydale that includes these 2 intersections, and whereas the study is not scheduled to commence before FY 2028, with capital improvements not scheduled to be included in the capital improvement plan until fiscal year 2030 at the earliest, with actual construction even further out, and there are unallocated funds available to the county from the widening of I-66. So be it resolved that the Transportation Commission recommends that the county board direct the county manager to move up the start of the corridor study to the coming fiscal year, with the initial preparations to begin in the current fiscal year, and that the capital improvements be given first priority in the upcoming capital improvement plan. Any discussion on that, Commissioner Forrest?
Where did the number 1,000 new residents come from? Is that units?
That is that number came from Commissioner Lantelli.
Okay.
I think, so this includes, this will include, I believe, also the developments of Roslyn. So
That sounds like it includes units then, and units are, I think, at like 1.7.
well, in either case, it says over 1,000.
But I think we can go higher. That's my point.
Okay.
I'd rather 1,500. I think it speaks.
Do you think 1,500 is substantively different than 1,000, like in people's mind? I mean, what kind of are saying
Sure,
things?
that's fair.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's not. This is so important to reprioritize. I'm fine.
What you
with
want to
it.
do, how about this? We'll have potentially thousands,
Sure, I like that.
potentially thousands.
Honestly, I like that because,
Okay,
yeah, because we are looking at, especially in this one area of Langston, a lot of people that are going to be coming in the next 10 years, and having the transportation study. I mean, I think we're all in agreement here. Having the transportation study so far down on the list is so detrimental to the safety of those people.
Do we need a motion for the amendment?
well, nah, I don't think so. Can we, is it possible to change that to potentially thousands?
We'll have potentially thousands of new residents.
Yeah.
Not to be a stickler over language. It's been a week of resolutions for me.
I should know all my streets, but I don't. Where is Kenmore? Like, how far is, just,
Hold on, I've got it.
It's over by Cherry.
I'm just look, yeah, I mean, that other intersection, but I don't know what it's called, but that other crazy intersection where the fire station is.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Military Road.
I just would say that we should maybe consider if Kenmore doesn't go all the way up there. I know that that's probably gonna eat up everything.
But that might be included, that fire station might be already included in the other ongoing studies, right?
I think that'd be the current study or is.
Yeah, that might be already underway.
Okay.
It
It is a terrible, I mean, I
Oh,
almost
no.
died.
All right, never mind.
It cuts off just west of Military Road.
Okay.
Okay. They're probably going to like here.
Kenmore's the first street after I-66.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is basically another way of saying section 5
Okay.
of the Langston Boulevard area plan.
I'll bring up that intersection next time.
Okay.
Another resolution.
Yeah.
Do everything all at once.
So since you're the procedure expert now, should I reread all of this again after having changed up potentially thousands of new residents? Or
I am pretty sure Robert's rules, you can ask for verbal majority to not read it.
Can I have a
Read it.
I offer
Well,
that too.
Yeah.
Do it, but like, let's make it smaller.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Given that there's no interest in rereading that, and it's pretty clear that the change that we made from over 1,000
It's a
to
friendly amendment.
potentially thousands.
It's a friendly amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can, are there any other people that would like to comment or have a question, or can we have a motion to vote on this? I moved to vote. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Forrest.
Aye.
Commissioner Singh.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Traer.
Aye.
Commissioner Theo.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vanderpool.
Aye.
All right, that concludes this agenda item. Thank you for
Thank you, guys.
to both the staff and the applicant. Senate. And I comment, I love these covered area.
Oh, yeah?
Walking, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I lived in,
It was really smart way to get in more space.
well, I'd like to see more of that, given how like extreme weather is becoming, how hot it gets and the rain. I lived in Italy for a while. That's like a famous for its arcades.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like, you don't even need to like carry an umbrella with you. when
No.
It's raining because you're just walking. And it's
Honestly, it was a tough choice because if we surveyed a lot of retailers, we were like, are you guys gonna feel offset by this?
Yeah.
Or are you gonna feel like comforted by this?
Yeah.
And it was really 50-50, but we thought sexually.
Thankfully.
The retail's too fast.
Fiddle with that in the.
Double height. So I mean, somebody wanted, they can build, somebody can build out, but yeah, but it's all the way back.
Yeah, well, people have left without,
No.
no big oil. The commissioners don't leave just yet.
Oh, sorry.
Issue haven't adjourned.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Are there any other?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do like this format. I feel like it's a lot more.
on in a subcommittee?
Oh, I do.
I do.
Okay.
Do I go?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I made it an oral now. By being
Oh, yeah.
aggressive, and then the next day, there was a change, so clearly it was me. But we finally had a readout of the CC to DCA project that I feel like has been going on for the last century and a half, with no updates at the Crystal and Pentagon Cities Council meeting. And at first, the original plan that they had put to public opinion was no coverage over the National Park Service Parkway. And I like, this is a useless project if it's not going to be covered, because who wants to walk a quarter of a mile in the rain? And then the next day, I was informed that the National Park Service had already looked at that and said the same thing. So we made change. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Is that comment form still available? I think
Yes.
I think it might be towards the end of the month.
Yes,
I
it is available.
think it's until the end of the month, or at least like till the 29th, something like
I
that.
believe it's to the 29th because they messed up on the dates and they had put today. So I will circulate the form to the group email from tonight. And please review, please make comment. I think it's a really good project. And just
3 days.
reiterate March 20th, yeah.
Yes, please.
And, just reiterate thankfulness that it will not be covered.
Yeah, I also, I mean, like, we don't need to discuss this as a commission now, but I also advocated for the separation of cyclists and pedestrians, just because I think it's kind of awkward if people are like on their way to the airport, virtually like with a heavy backpack or something. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with Mount Vernon Trail is the two mixing.
That's still going to be an issue in the way it's proposed right now. It's about 30% of the way towards the functional design. If there is separation, it would require significant widening of the structure, which I believe they've done budgetary estimates for that, and it's loud. However, I do think there is a call for that, given that the trail does have an exit ramp towards
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like that mix is gonna
a little dangerous.
Yeah, it already is problematic on Mount Vernon Trail, so this is gonna be kind of incline. So anyway, Commissioner Hussein.
Yeah, just a couple of updates. The 1501 Langston SPRC happened, but there was no, that was all land use density, so nothing really transportation. So stay tuned for SPRC number 2. Then also on the climate action plan project, that was launched, I think kind of officially on February 26th. There was a session at the library. So we're going to have our first meeting on April 20th. And then lastly, from the Transit Advisory Committee, we had our meeting in March and they gave us a bunch of updates on the county's doing their collecting data and evaluating the battery electric bus program. So they'll be collecting data and kind of figuring out how that's going. They also gave updates on the transit agency's response to the winter storm. There's a new micro transit pilot program, which is going to be looking at micro transit, like on-demand transit in Northwest Arlington. And then lastly, they gave an update on the the Arlington Transit Satisfaction Survey hadn't been done since 2019, and overall people are happy with Arlington Transit. So yeah, it's perfect.
Crushed it.
Not entirely, but yeah, I'll save the. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, going to all of these other.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I do actually have one more.
okay.
issue we need to talk about.
What do you have?
4420 SPRC or 4420 Fairfax Drive. They're going to. Okay, same as you. There's no transportation yet, so no real notes, but I have lots of questions. What's the EV turning maneuvering? Is there pickup? I'll have more next time.
Okay. All right, well, it's been a long session. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Commissioner Walker, for coming in. It turns out we found out it was not necessary, but now we know.
I like this meeting room. I think that this is, in my opinion, a better way of doing
I don't think it,
engaging.
because I can't whisper to my neighbor without thinking it's gonna catch.
Yeah.
on the mic.
The mics seem very strong in here.
They're
That was
very
really
strong.
Was it?
And so I can't be like,
Yeah, you're like
without
pretty
everybody
quiet.
online hearing it.
Yeah.
I can see that. I like the kind of speaking in the same.
Yeah.
I'm used to that.
Having a
Like,
conversation.
job in Jacksonville, working for city council, they said like, don't say anything in any of these meeting rooms that you aren't comfortable being on the public record.
Right, exactly.
If you whisper, the mics will keep it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Working at that
Good to know.
specific
April
photo,
20th.
Yeah.
the
April
messy
20th.
one.
All right.
April 30th.
Wait,
April
It's
30th.
very,
April 30th.
Yeah.
is next meeting. Yeah,
this is,
thank
I've
you.
used it for a while, so it's not like, it doesn't.
See you.
Nice to meet you. Just wanted to introduce myself, Ryan.
Nice to meet
you. Nice to meet you in person. And I'm sorry I'm not gonna hang out and socialize, but my fiance got a new job and I should go really celebrate with her a little bit. Okay?
You're fine.
So would love to chat more at the next one. Yes.
Yeah, we will sometimes convene after, but
Yeah.
tonight we will not.
Yeah, I'll send you next time.
Yeah.
We will convene after if we end before 9:30.
Never meet with you guys. It's like, oh my God, that's probably, yeah, so I was concerned. But fortunately, it's not, so we're
Glad
good.
to see everybody in person.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That went much longer than I thought. Yeah, but it was good.
Lots of
Thank you.
comment.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm still recording.
Are there still children here? Did you see that? Okay, so we're all.
The children as propaganda.
They were, they were, but okay. Come on,
What
guys.
programs was it?
Arlington Gymnastics. Let's think about our political future as an entire county here. We don't want to piss off the gymnastics folk. We still recording.
Cool.
I'll see if we can stop it at the
This is the power here. All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. You know what? Looks like we're still recording. I'm let's be logged in into place. I need to. Because I want to talk to you.
Okay.
Before, whether we.
Or I'll just wait outside.
Okay.
Time.